Hey guys, Chris here from Aluminum Fishing Series. We are smack dab into season 3, episode 2. And with us today, you might recognize this guy from all over the fishing scene. Has been doing the MLF for the last couple of years, former FLW pro, Mr. Tom Redington. How you doing, man?
Doing great. Glad to be here, Chris.
So, there's a reason why you're on this podcast, the Aluminum Fishing Series podcast, because it just so happens that you are now part of the aluminum family. Is that
Yeah.
right? So you were running a Phoenix, was it?
Yes, sir.
You were
Yeah.
running a
Yeah, I was
Phoenix?
running. Yep.
And what was the give me the details on that, the specs on that beauty.
Well, that was, and I would say before, I'm coming back to I wasn't excommunicated or kicked out of the family, but I'm a member of the family, and I strayed, and I guess I got with some of the cousins and in-laws, all of that stuff, and then I came back to the family. But yeah, I was running a 21-foot Phoenix, and their 21 foot, that 921 Elite, for about 5 6 years, and then before that I was with, I think, like back in the day we all started with Ranger for years. Like 2004 I think was my first pro staff boat. I guided for a long time, and I was running 21 footers with them, the 20 footer which morphed into it. And so yeah, I'd been in a big fiberglass boat for a long time.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot if you dive in, a lot of people have kind of a second boat typically that is their little river rat, and that's what I'm kind of getting at with a lot of these conversations with a lot of the pros that I've been talking to. They've got a small tin rig in the back that they like to go out fun fishing. You know,
Yeah.
it's becoming more of a reality for a lot of guys to jump back into an aluminum boat, especially when they started off on small John boats and that's how they got on the water when they were young. So
Yeah.
it's really fun to see the explosion of tin. It's really fun. But so you made the decision to leap, um,
Okay.
but we're back. We're back. I can edit that out. So anyway, so like we were saying, you made the decision to jump into a an aluminum rig for the MLF Invitational this year. Now, explain your thought process behind going back to aluminum.
Well, actually, it's a total change for me. I'm actually out of the pro fishing gig here, so I'm going to be fishing, going full time into the YouTube world, and with that, that's where I made that big change this year.
Oh, very nice. I didn't know you stopped doing the invitationals. Okay, because that's been
Yeah,
that's what you've been doing for the last couple of years, anyways.
yeah. So I qualified for the FLW Tour through the Toyotas. I don't know, it was the Coast,
Yep.
or the whatever Rayovacs, whatever it was way
Yeah,
back
whatever it
when.
was.
And so I fished the pro scene for years, and FLW Tour was for a little. When I first joined in there, they were challenging bass for supremacy. It's $1 million payout at the Cup, and Van Dam and Clun and all those guys coming over, and then it you know uh Bass and them went back and forth, and then the last couple of years when Major League Fishing bought FLW, and then the FLW Tour became the Tackle Warehouse and a kind of a AAA tour and stuff. It was, I got really close to qualifying for the BPT after the 2023 season. I had a great season,
Mm-hmm.
close, and then tailed off at the end of the year. And then last year was not so good. And I still love it, but it was kind of at one of those, at a juncture with forward facing sonar and just the quality of anglers these days. I figured I either had to go on the road and really go headfirst into scope and spend a bunch of time up in smallmouth country and just be gone all the time and kind of just dive back in, or it was time to transition. And I got thinking, really what I love to do as much as anything. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love to compete in tournaments, whether it's a Tuesday night fruit jar to a cup or anything in between, as much as anything. But why I did this, why I started out guiding, why I fish tournaments, is because I love to fish and I want to fish all the time. And I got thinking
Mm-hmm.
about it, and it's like, man, I can this YouTube deal and content creating is a decent opportunity. I talked to my sponsors; they were all on board, and it gives me the opportunity to set my own tournament schedule, fish around the country on lakes that I want to fish when I want to fish, and it's still a competition against yourself. I mean, you're
Mm-hmm.
always out there trying to catch more, do better, all that. So I feel like I could still get my fix My brother still has a glass boat. I can tournament fish with him. So,
Mm-hmm.
if we want to do that, or we can jump in mine too and plan to fish some tournaments out of mine, just local stuff. But, really for all intents and purposes, I want to do the chase after fishing the way I want to fish. And kind of what led me to aluminum a little bit is, I've been with Garmin for years. I had the original Panoptics and all that stuff. I enjoy live scope. It's gotten really cold here lately. I've done a lot of it. I feel comfortable. I'm not as good as Drew Gill and a lot of those guys, but what I really love to do is going back to the roots again. I love to get shallow. I love to flip. I like throw a square bill, bladed jig and stuff, and that's what I'm going to set my own little tournament schedule on local lakes and then traveling around. And I'm going to do power fishing, and that's where that aluminum fits that style so well because I want to push back into the backs of these, fish through stumps, get back behind docks, go into the shallows, and the
Mm-hmm.
aluminum just fits that for me a lot better.
Very nice. Very nice. So I guess you touched on it earlier in the conversation, but you mentioned that whole change with MLF when MLF bought FLW. Do you think that helped or hurt FLW?
Well, for it's always anytime a company gets acquired, it's like, oh, it's the merger of two equals. We love what you guys are doing. Nothing's going to change. There's always, it's whether it's you get multiple dogs or deer or something. There's always going to be an alpha, and the others fall in line.
Oh
And
yeah, oh yeah.
usually, the one that acquires it, they're the one that sets the ground rules. So definitely, it hurt the FLW tour part, and it kind of, it like I said, it made it to a AAA tour, and that's just the nature of things. Whether I like it or not, or think it's right or whatever, it's just that's the nature of business of what all of us that in our if you work in the corporate world, if you get acquired, that's just how it goes, and you can complain about it or adapt and go on. So I'm not bitter. I see why they did it, and I mean it's just kind of what it is. What it is.
Yeah, it was odd for a while there because you had three different professional series going on, when MLF first came out. And then there was just you couldn't get a lot of information, but FLW seemed like it was doing all right. But then MLF came in as the new guy and purchased, FLW. It was a very odd transaction. I still don't understand it. I figured if anything would have happened, FLW had kind of their stake in the ground, their foundation, where they could have kind of merged a little bit more with MLF, but MLF just came over and took over.
Yeah, and I think at the time they felt they needed a feeder system and a grassroots, the BFL, the Toyotas, and kind of the full pyramid there to feed it. And that's, I mean, honestly, they've done pretty well with that. The BFLs were going down. They've pumped some new blood in there. The Toyotas are with the championship and good lakes and good turnout. I mean, they're doing well. It was the tour. It's just, I mean, to be quite honest, it's the history of the NFL with the AFL and the
Mm.
ABA and the NBA, and golf's going through it now, and
Yeah, oh
the
yeah,
American
oh
League and
yeah.
the National League. There's room for one pro tour, and anytime you have more than that, and especially in our niche kind of sport fishing, it's just a struggle. And I mean, to me, at some point, Bass buys MLF or MLF buys Bass. The problem is, as soon as you do it, there's low barriers to entry, and then NPFL gets even bigger, and then it's just you can't
Yeah,
ever quite get there.
yeah. That'd be an interesting dynamic if MLF and Bass ever merged. I mean, I feel like there would be a big power struggle
Well, and that's part of it. I looked at it and it's like, okay, maybe this is the year I qualify up again and I get on the BPT, and then all of a sudden Bass buys Major League Fishing the next year, and all those guys are like, okay, we're going to take 10 of your best guys or 15, the rest of you can qualify. So you could, or I could go fish the Bass Opens, and I mean they have a great format this year. But then I
there.
could qualify for the elites, and then MLF buys the next year. It's like, we love you guys, like you six we want, and then there's like eight more, and then the rest of you have to qualify. So I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
it's just a crazy time in the fishing world.
It is wild. But, we've touched on it on past podcasts, the fact that it has kind of ironed out a little bit now where you have, especially with all the new rules for live scope, right? The transition from last year to this year is heavy, but from a high level, how I look at it is you've got three different major trails and all three are doing something different. So now you essentially can go after whatever trail you'd like to fish on and try to qualify for that style of fishing. NPFL, live scope, they're going back to their roots. You got MLF, which is killing, I think 1 period or 2 periods of live scope. And now, is that across all MLF series? The Invitationals, the BPT, are they still doing the Toyota? Is it across all of those tours that they're killing like 1 period of live scope?
So it's you can only use it 1 period in the BPT. Other two you can't.
Yeah.
On the invitationals this year, you get it on day 1. Nobody gets it on day 2, and then you get it back on championship day 3.
So
that's gonna be cool to see. We're gonna find out these guys say, well, these kids can't catch it without live scope or these whatever. So it's gonna be interesting. And it's going to play with people's heads. I mean, you go smash 28 pounds day 1 on Rayburn or something, and then the next day you can't use it. And how easy it is to spin out and fishing. That'll be a cool dynamic. Yeah. And then the Toyotas and the BFLs, college, all that stuff. Then it's actually I tell you about at the college and high school. I'm not sure what they did, but the BFLs and the Toyotas, it's anything goes.
Okay. All right.
And that's the other thing is like right now, if you qualify, a couple guys qualified for the BPT this year, and then when they reined in the live scope, they decided to go over to the opens and try to fish for the elites where everything's still legal. But it's everybody's gonna try it out. And this year, based on viewership and fan feedback, they're not going to change it mid-year. But all the organizations have kind of left it open that, hey, we're trying it this year, but TBD. So you could sign up for a tour that the MPFL could let back in. Major League Fishing may say, actually, we're done with it, or we're going back to all 3 periods. Or Bass could totally ban it next year. They could all. I think it'll probably kind of standardize, just because the stuff usually works to equilibrium at some point, and they're going to find out that
losing me a little bit.
Actually, they just want to see more fish caught, so they don't care, or whatever. But that's
let's keep rolling and see what happens. All good.
Okay.
That's technology for you.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's you can just figure out what you want to do and go for it. That's basically the gist of it. Is that what we were talking about? Yeah, it's a wild scene. It's a wild scene.
Yeah,
it's the Wild West, and you got a lot of professionals now going into MPFL. They got the invite to MPFL, so that'll be interesting to see that, because if I'm thinking about it off the top of my head, if I'm in NPFL and there's no real, I'm gonna say pros, right, that have been on the MLF or been on the elites or anything like that in the roster, and then all of a sudden there's 10 to 20 of them on the roster the next year, I'm gonna look at it and go, do I want that? You know what I mean? And I'm wondering what some of these guys are doing. If it was me, I'm like, I like the competition. If I'm going to be the best, I want to beat the best, right? But some guys are probably, you can't make everybody happy. So someone's going to complain about it and say, oh, they let all these other guys in. Now the competition's a lot harder. I don't know if I want to do it. Like that type of thing. Do you see that happening at all?
I think in general, that tour is trying to get more eyeballs on it and stuff. So I think the general feel is, hey, the more star power you have, and you bring them over there, and somebody, if you beat a John Cox and a Hackney and big names like that, it just makes your win and your catches validated that much more. And I think most fishermen, when they're at that level, aren't afraid of fishing other guys. They want to fish against the top group. So I think in general it's a pretty welcome group. And they it seems like they had a few notable exceptions at the end of the year. It sounded like, but in general it seems like a pretty it's kind of a more of a community family type environment there, and I think guys are excited to be there. It's just a little bit lower egos and just guys that are there because they want to fish tournaments, and it's all about the tournament instead of a lot of the other business side of it.
Yeah, I agree. And what is there, 118 I think anglers in the new NPFL roster right now, and then there's the elites has got almost like that. I think it's 105 or something, 106. And then
Yep.
MLF Invitationals, I think, is around that 100 mark as well, right?
The invitationals are, I haven't heard the number. We had been at 150 the last couple of years, but now that the BPT's
Oh,
gone
it's
down to
that high. Okay.
65 this year, and then 50 next year. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see where all that shakes out. Plus the Bass Opens, that see the number of people ready to sign up. It's pretty amazing how many just the
I
the
know.
list that they can keep on drawing. That many people.
It's crazy. And how, like, yeah, what's an open draw? Like, what's the max draw for an open?
Like I want to say it's like 225 or something, with about
Yeah.
150, 175 of those fishing all of them. So,
Yeah.
and now it's a shorter circuit. I think it's even more. So yeah.
That's wild. Yeah. I mean, obviously, if you're a fisherman, you know that you'd rather fish against 50 or 100 instead of 230. You know what I mean? Um, but yeah, it's
Yeah,
just, but
it's
if that's the
incredible.
way if that's what you got to do to make it to that next level, guys are going to do it. And it's
Yep.
it's just crazy. I mean, what's the entries now for the opens? I mean, you're talking some
I'm
good
not,
money
the
too.
opens went up this year, I think, and it's more
Yeah.
at the end of the year. They're not doing nine, but it's I mean all the rest. I mean you're talking about 5,000 a crack on those. So it's a lot of money plus gas and lodging and goof. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Wow. Yeah. I don't know if I'd do it. If I got an invitation to the opens, I'd be like, no, I'm good. I'd do what you're doing. I'm going to go do some local tournaments that I have fun with. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
we got plenty up here that just Guggen tournaments just to have fun, especially my trail too. I put it together and it's 15 teams, some opens of 30, but like it just stresses me out thinking about fishing against 230 guys. It's wild.
Yeah, and it's not like the competition factor. It's just everything gets covered up, and it's hard to not fish on top of people and always
Yeah.
around and after practice, if you have a 3 day practice period, I mean, guys find absolutely everything that beat everything up, and it's just
Hmm.
nobody's having fun. Smaller field
No,
sizes are the way to go. Yeah.
I agree. I agree. But anyways, all right. Let's get into some boat talk. All right, because this is the reason why I wanted to talk to you. You bought into a new Express. All right, you are part of the Express family now. I am
Hmm.
also looking at an Express. All right, and I want to go over your decision on getting the H20 and what factored in, what you did to it, what kind of options you put on it, what you needed, what you didn't need, stuff like that. So let's talk about the decision making on getting into the Express boat.
Yeah, I was, and you talked a little bit before about people having their second boats and sneak boats and all that stuff, or just
Mm-hmm.
fun boats. It's funny that just tell one quick background on that. My buddy back home, I grew up on the Mississippi River, and had had a buddy who went to high school with who was kind of the king of river fishing up there for a long time. Won a lot of BFLs, and everybody accused he went to an aluminum he'd always practice in, and they all called it his sneak boat. He was
Yeah.
he was sneaking around. He didn't want to get spotted, but he laughed. I went with him in it a couple years ago, and he's like, yeah, it's sneaky, but he said, you fish out of it, you're not going to believe you're going to want one of these things. And he has a I don't know, like a 17-foot flat bottom, basically a little
Mm-hmm.
bit nicer the flat bottom, but he's got like a 60 horse on it, just a tiller, and he has a big is a great big trolling motor on the front of
Yeah.
it, and that thing and we went up to La Crosse, and the river was flooded, and we went back into the woods, and like the fish were back there. You found the duckwort mats back there, and they were
Yeah.
eating a frog like they've never seen one before. And he puts that trolling motor down, and like you're in 6 inches of water, and there's a log. I mean, you just go up to it, you put the trolling motor on the other side, and just crawl over the log. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
I'd be doing the whole time would be cussing and rocking the boat, trying to get off it, and worried about screwing up my boat because I'm scratching it. And I'm like after that day, I'm like, this is fun. I'm like, I had
Yeah.
so much fun doing it that day. So when I looked at aluminum when I was going to do it, I kind of thought about doing that. And you talk about the backlash of tournaments and how expensive they are, and there seems to be an angler backlash, me included. Just boats are becoming so expensive now.
Yeah.
All the gear that you put on it. I mean, it's there's almost like this kind of a dichotomy. There's that it's like a rich man's sport. The average guy can't compete. $5,000 entry fee. I mean, everything's just so expensive. And I kind of wanted to to like just do a reset. And I was thinking about going
Yeah.
with something like that. And I thought, well, if I get aluminum though, I'm just going to have to, I'm going to give up all these nice conveniences of having a bass boat and stuff. And I do kind of like the storage and the big deck and stuff. Well, I start my search and I see the new H20, the Express, and it's like this shining beacon was on it there.
Mm.
So you can get it with a 175 horse motor that'll run a legit 60 miles an hour, 20-foot boat. So it's big and wide. I mean, my video you can lay across the front. I mean,
Mm.
it's big and wide, has tons of storage, has the trolling motor, one graph, a jack plate, trailer. I mean, it's ready to fish for 39,000. I'm like, this is like big boat performance at.
Mm.
I mean, 39,000 is not nothing, but compared to like fully rigged bass boats now that are 100 grand easy, I mean that's like way less.
Right.
So, and I looked at the H18. You can do that for like 33,000 with
Mm.
a 115, and even the H17, which is like I think 28 for a similarly equipped one, and that's like a 70 or something.
Mm.
But I was going to do like the real strip down, but it's kind of like everybody all of a sudden it's like, well, if I could do a little bit bigger and get
Yeah.
that big boat, and I'm like, it's like having heated seats in your truck. All of a sudden you're like, man, I really don't need this, but once you get it, like I can't ever give it up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So so that H20 to me it's the perfect blend of it's something that anybody can aspire to. That I mean,
Mm.
it's 39,000 is not like I said, that's not free, but I mean, you price pickup trucks and cars and stuff. I mean, that's attainable and
Yeah.
something that if it was 2 3 years old, like could definitely be on anybody's wish list. So I feel like I'm not out there in something like driving around like some guy driving a Ferrari or something like that that's aspirational and nobody can afford. So and then that the camo, it's just there again the paint scheme. I don't have to worry about scratching it up. You take that back into bushes and stuff. I mean,
Yep.
you could literally spray paint, touch it up. And this is to the point where I was in my fiberglass boat that there's a brand new lake in Texas here called Bodark Lake.
Okay.
It's full of timber, and like back in the day, if there was a brand new lake, I mean, I would have like fought anybody to get in the front of the line to go fish that thing. Well, this past year, I've got that nice pretty wrap on my boat, and it's getting close to when it opens. It's getting close to time to sell my boat and stuff. I didn't even go up there. I don't want to scratch up my pretty boat.
Yep.
And I mean, I love my Phoenix. I'm not saying anything bad. I mean, I love that thing. It rides great. It tons of storage. I mean, that was a great boat too. But it's just like, why have this thing and you can't even take it up there if I'm fishing around docks? Like you go back and you've got a $10 jerkbait hung in the side of a dock, and you go up there and a wave takes you into the a corner of it. You're going to do $1,500 of fiberglass
Hmm.
damage, or getting your fishing buddies, crankbait out of a rock up there. You go up shallow and one
Hmm.
wave takes you up on it. It's I just got to the point where like, man, aluminum's the way to go. The camel rig, like
Yeah.
I'm gonna take care of it. I'm not gonna intentionally beat it, but like I'm not afraid to go fish it where the fish are now. So it's kind of a
Yeah.
liberating experience.
It sure is. Now, you don't still have your Phoenix? Do you sold it, or did you trade it in?
Yep, sold the Phoenix.
You sold
Yep,
it. Okay. Okay. Didn't know if you had the double
yep.
boat going on.
No,
But
no, I'm 100% in.
did you? So was Express the only one on your radar, or did you look at other ones, other brands?
Yeah, I kind of looked around, and it being a long time with Ranger, a lot of those guys, the original Ranger people, went over to Vexus, and I kind of looked at that, and I mean they
Yep.
make a nice boat. I have some buddies that fish them. I know I used to room with John Cox and
Yep.
Keith Carson some, and I think they love theirs, and they make a great boat. It's just the price point's a little bit higher, and Express to me was the one that I just had always when I think of aluminum as the first one I would think of. I knew it
Hmm.
was the first all welded, and it seems like that was the brand that comes to mind for me. in terms of aluminum. And as soon as I saw the H20 and then I went and checked it out, I was like, okay, this is a sign right here that new H20 came out this year. It's like I found exactly what I want to do.
Yeah, yeah. I talked to John and Keith a month ago. They were on a podcast.
Yeah.
It was pretty fun. I haven't released it yet though, but fun guys. Yeah, they had a lot of great things to say about the Vexus family, the guys in the plant and everything. So not surprised you'd mention them. A lot of guys are going to Vexus. They've got a great 20 and 21-foot option. You know, a lot of companies don't when you're talking about aluminum boats, right? Crestliner is probably one you do. Lund, but they're a whole different hull. But Xpress, Vexus, they're really the top for me. You know,
Yeah.
and you know, if you're talking 5 years ago, you know, you're looking at a lot of these boats with a very thin hull, right? You're looking at, you know, it started off with that 0.1 gauge thickness aluminum, and only the contenders, I'm going to say, are jumping to that 125. So Ranger just did it with their new Alpha. That's 125 thick hull. I think it's like 52 gauge or something. Xpress does it with everybody. Lund does it because their hull is so big anyways. They're more of a V hull. They're huge. Those things are monsters.
Yeah.
And Vexus is now doing it, I believe. So a lot of companies are doing it when they jump up to the bigger engines. But you know, 10 years ago, you couldn't get a tin rig with a 200 on it, or even a 150 on it. You know, so it's come a long way in a very short amount of time. And you see it. You see a lot of these guys jumping over from the fiberglass world coming into the aluminum family, and you're going to see more and more of it if prices still continue to jump for those fiberglass rigs. It's
And
really, it really
to
is
me,
crazy. Yeah.
yeah, and I was there back in the day when it was, Forrest Wood was still around, and Keith Daffern was starting to run it, and he was
Mm-hmm.
like third generation there. It was a Ranger was family run. If you had a problem with something, you would call up to the factory. Your dealer would call up there. It was it was that family type business, and that's the same way I feel like I got with Express. To me, that's
Mm-hmm.
important. That you know where it's just that more family feel, and I know a lot of those other companies have it as well. But it's to me, it's like you're buying kind of like if you do have every once in a while, all brands, I don't care what they are. I mean, they'll just be like one that's like a Kurtz lemon.
Mm-hmm.
It's something didn't get built right or something, and
Right.
the poor guy that gets it, like your lotto ticket may come up sometime in life, and you want to make sure that the company is something that they're going to stand behind it. And a lot of the brands you've mentioned, and I know Express for sure. I've talked to buddies and stand behind their stuff. And the other thing that really sold me too, that kind of led me there, was the fact that my Phoenix dealer was an Express dealer as well. And I tried to give this message to so many people, but to me, yeah, buy a good boat, and there's lots of good ones out there. But the most important factor when you buy a boat, your satisfaction, is probably the dealer you buy it from.
Mm-hmm.
One, if you buy it from somebody, they're gonna help you out because they want to sell you another one. But like a good dealer who has a good mechanic and stuff, like when you have a vacation trip coming up, or you have a big tournament, it's your championship or something on your home lake, and all of a sudden at Friday afternoon the stinking thing won't start, or something breaks down, and you're either going to have to cancel that trip or not be able to fish the tournament or go. I mean, that dealer is going to be the one that determines that says, yeah, pull it in, we'll get it figured out. We can't get
Mm-hmm.
the part, but here we'll band-aid it something. I mean, the dealer is the one that has the biggest uh, impact on your experience. And that's I'd
I
worked
agree.
with Ships, a local dealer for Phoenix, taking great care of me, and that made it super easy. That I had that comfort level with my dealer, that I knew that they said, "Hey, you're gonna love the Express," and I knew they were gonna take care of me. So that made it really easy. Like the dealer is the number one thing I look for.
Yeah, if you can find a dealer that does all that instead of just selling boats, right? So, and a lot of them do. We run into the issue up here because I'm in Boston, so there are no Express dealers up there. You know, New York
Yeah.
is pretty close. There's one in Pennsylvania that's apparently the one and all. You know, if you're buying an Express, you got to go to these guys. And I've been talking to this guy for probably 2 months. He may every time he answers the phone when I call, he's probably like, "Oh, Jesus Christ, this guy's calling again!" Like, I am putting him through the ringer. I've gone through like 6 different builds. It is a nightmare, and I feel so bad that he's putting this much time in. Like I have to buy a boat from him, because he's put so much time into it.
Yeah.
But what we got up here in Boston is we've got engine guys and we've got electronics guys. So
Yeah.
while we can't go back to the dealer, so if I do buy from Pennsylvania, I'm not going to make a Pennsylvania trip. That's 8 hours for me, right? So I got to find a guy who knows the engine that I'm going to buy, and I got to find someone around local that does all the electronics installations. So those guys are so impactful to anyone's season up here,
Yeah.
and you start to see the industry leaders in your area because you got the best guys, the best fishermen, the guys who are competing the most going to these guys and just talking all sorts of good stuff about them. So it's really easy to find those guys. And what I would say for anybody that's listening, don't cheap out on that stuff because that you go to somebody who you don't trust, you're never going to know what you're going to get. So definitely do your research, talk to your groups, talk to your community about who to go to, who everybody goes to, and use them. Because they're doing it for a reason. But with that said, so let me ask you this: the
Mm-hmm.
H20, was it always the H20? Because I've been told, since it is a new model for the year, there's not a lot of sales history or quality history on it that could impact resale down the road. Do you see that as an issue, or do you think that these things are going to be so well built that down the road it's going to actually improve its resale value?
Yeah. So my experience, a couple things. One, anytime if you're if you get the first year when a new boat comes out, when it's the new model, when they update to something, it's same with like if you're a Chevy guy and the new Silverado comes out or the new F-150 or something, there's going to be when in a couple of years when you go to sell that, there's not going to be a lot of those on the market. In my experience, it makes them a lot easier to sell just because a lot of people want to upgrade just to the latest models and stuff. And the fact that there
Yeah,
wasn't an H20 before, it's not just an updated model. There's no other one out there. They didn't have that, kind of budget price 20 footer before. So I think for resale, I think you're going to be all right. And it seems like everything keeps on edging up in price. So it's probably the acquisition price right now. It is going to be lower than what it's going to be in a few years. So I'm
okay.
not horribly worried. And then the other thing is they've been building 20-foot bay boats and stuff.
Yeah,
That whole so it's not like all of a sudden it's the first time they're building a 20 footer, and it's the same. That hyperlift hull is the same one they build their X series boats on. So it's
yeah.
like not all of a sudden like a whole new design. So I feel pretty comfortable that uh, they're not breaking new ground. It's we've all been through the first year of a new trolling motor, and
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
I'm old enough to remember guys at I didn't have one, but the guys I fished the BFLs with and stuff, the old Redmans back then, getting the Ficht and the first Optipops, the Optimaxes, and oh my gosh, the first
Oh,
year
you
of any
cut out.
motor. I was just saying the
Hold
first
on,
year of any motor.
you gotta say that again. Yeah, do it again, do it again. I couldn't hear it.
Uh, I was just saying that the first year of like motors, the old Ficht and the Optipop, the Optimax, and
Oh
the
yeah, yeah.
first year of trolling motors and stuff. Oh my gosh, it's like God help me, I never want to be the first year of any trolling motor or outboard, especially again. That's
Correct.
just nightmares.
Yep.
But boats, it seems like way hulls are they don't really break that much ground on most of them. They move around, they put different panels in, they change up the storage, but the hulls are pretty much the hulls.
Correct. And a lot of people don't know that. They look at them and say, "Oh, well, it's called a hyperlift hull." Well, yeah, it's the same one they do on the X. A lot of people
Yeah.
think that is different, and that's why they're kind of moving away from it. I'm curious as to why you don't see more marketing saying that it's the same hull. It's the same thickness hull. It's a little bit narrower of a beam by like 2 inches, I think. And I'm comparing it to the X19, but it is the
Right.
same exact hull. It's the same, and it's
Yep.
wild. That's the first question anybody asks me because I've asked a lot of my friends down south who I used to fish with a lot, and I still talk to them like H or X. What do you think? And their first without even hesitation, they say X because they know what kind of tournament fisherman I am. And I'm like, but it's the same hull. They're like, wait, it is? And then they have to go back and research it again. It's like, yeah, it's the same damn hull. But did you compare it with an X19? Were you ever looking at the 19, or did you always know you wanted at least a 20 footer?
No, it wasn't anything the size of the 19. I'd be fine. I was always. It's funny. I ran a 21-foot boat all the time, and then back when I was guiding, I was always taking two customers, almost always, and
Yeah.
sometimes I'd have three. And I mean, you just get used to I don't know, it's brainwash, or you just get used to like, man, I need at least 20-foot boat, 21-foot
Mm-hmm.
boat. And there were a couple times where I had motor problems where I had to get it fixed, and the owner of the dealership had an 18-foot. It was a like a 185 or 188 Ranger, and they're not. I mean, that boat was not. Boats in the last 10 years have become more rectangles. They stay wide to
Mm-hmm.
the front and then boom, come in.
Yes.
And back then they were more like a triangle. I mean, the thing just went boop and turn in, and I was so nervous about taking two customers and a couple days, even three. And it's amazing if you get guys that can fish. It's like an 18-foot boat's capable, and you start thinking back that yeah, when I first was co-angler and stuff, I mean, back in the day, I mean, not that long ago, or maybe that long ago, but the 80s. I mean, 18, 19 foot. I remember Mark Davis had the old, he started running that Jaguar. It was like a 20 footer. It's like, oh my God, a 20 footer, this huge boat. And then
Mm-hmm.
I drew Kevin Worth in a 22-foot Triton, I remember. And I mean,
Oh gosh.
that thing would go so slow. But when that thing rode, I'm like, oh my gosh, after being in a couple of those 18-foot Rangers going down in the like that New Orleans Delta down there going bouncing across that rough water. It's like wow,
Yeah.
and you kind of get brainwashed. You need the bigger one, but anyway, that size, uh, it we get used to getting those big
Oh,
ones, but then you forget those 18-foot boats are
sorry, losing
fully
you again.
capable. Whoop,
You still there? Can you hear me?
yep, yeah, I got you.
All right. Yeah, I just keep saying trying to reconnect. So, all right, right back into it. So yeah, so the 20 footer. Was there anything about the 20 footer that you didn't like compared to the X19?
It's I would say it's basically to me the 18, the X and the H series. It's more like trim levels of a truck or something like that. You get one with cloth seats, and it doesn't come with standard heated seats, and uh, you don't get the fancier tires and
Yeah.
some of the nicer entertainment system and all that stuff. So it's more about trim. The bones of the boat are the same. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
come rigged with as much stuff. Like the base trolling motor and the base stuff is not going to be as nice on the H series. It's going to be more standard. So you're going to put a few more dollars in options probably there. But it's like the bones of it are there. So it just
Yeah.
comes down to it comes to kind of trim that you want, and then it's also speed. And so the X19 it's outfitted nicer, for a tournament guy, and it has the speed. So if you really, if you're on big lakes where you're going to make long runs, that's where a boat that runs 70 miles an hour, you put that 200 on it. I mean that if you're on Rayburn and Kentucky Lake and these places where you're going to make a 50 to 80-mile run, or you're just going to be running backs of creeks all days or something, that guy's going to want the X19, X21. If you're
Yeah.
fishing, like when I lived in Milwaukee up there in Madison, you're fishing 5,000-acre lakes, and you can be across them in a canoe in 30
Mm-hmm.
minutes and in a boat
Yeah.
in 30 seconds. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And if you fish tournaments that allow trailering, I've been out. It was last weekend. That cold front was blowing literally 39 miles an hour. I mean, it 38, 39-mile-an-hour gusts all afternoon, fishing right out there in the middle of it, and it's I can run 60 miles an hour, but most of the time I'm putting around 45,
Yeah.
50, getting good gas mileage. And it's when I'm not fishing a tournament, like if I want to fish the upper end of a lake, I'm going to go trailer up there. So like the 40-mile run to get to the upper end of the lake now is kind of moot. So to
Yeah.
me, that's the biggest separator. If you're tournament running where you need if you're going to be fishing you want the more tournament layout, the tournament live well and stuff. And need that speed. That's where the X series is going to do better. If you're fishing team stuff, or you're not really, are you fishing smaller lakes or not fishing tournaments as much, that's where the H series is going to be perfect for you.
Yeah, but you can also upgrade the hell out of an H to be a tournament competitor. Um,
Yeah,
but also,
for sure.
I always found it odd that, and I've never seen one up here, so I can't justify my thought. But you put a 200 on the back of an X19 and you sit it in the water, wouldn't you think the thing is going to look like this in the water with the weight on the back of that
Yeah,
thing?
yeah,
Like I always thought that you'd be back heavy, even if you're running lithiums and everything. It's so heavy in the back with aluminum. I just never thought it was a good fit to fish out of because the bow is just going to be so much more higher out of the water.
yeah. And with mine, mine has a 175, so it's a little bit smaller block, but that Yamaha, but I can run it wide open and just let off the gas, and it's not getting the splash onto
The
the
wash.
you. Yeah, so I mean, it's not like it's sitting leaning up.
True, but you look at the weight of the H20 versus the X19, just flat without the engine. You're lighter on the
Hmm.
H. You're lighter on the 20 footer, and that's a big deal when I'm looking at this thing because the places that I fish up here, you're not going to put a fiberglass boat. I mean, you just can't. And it kind of puts me in a predicament where okay, if I have the H18, I can get into everywhere, whether it's a tiny river with a dirt ramp that nobody else will go down, or I can
Yeah,
fish the big waters where it's pretty easy to get there. If I go to a 20, I might not be able to fish one or two of those special places without some additional effort, I guess you could say.
yeah,
But maneuverability, I guess you could say too, because it's longer. The X19 is kind of just in the middle there, but it's at a higher price point. And I would never go with a 200 on a 19 just because I don't need it. I'm not a speed guy. I don't give
yeah,
a crap. All right, I can go 55 and be just fine. My boats
yeah,
have never gone over 43 miles an hour for the last 20 years. All right, my first tin rig was a 15 RT 188. So it was before Johnny Morris bought the brand. So it was still being built by those guys down in Flippin, Arkansas, right? The Vexus
yep,
guys. So the quality was still there. But again, it was a point 0.1 thick hull, so it was still kind of slappy on bigger water. I don't fish bigger water a whole lot. I'm trying to do it more to understand more about deeper water fishing, but I can do that in an 18, an X19, or an H20. So I don't know which one to buy, and it's been killing me. I mean, I've literally again I've done. I think I have 4 build sheets from this guy. Every week I send them different information. Today I'm telling them about all my woes on the phone. I'm like, this is what I'm talking about. I know I'm only a couple grand different here, but like I don't know what to do. And the guy's just sitting there like, yeah, yeah. I bet he's going, I got to get this guy off the phone because I got other shit to do. But I mean, he's been phenomenal with me. And, I'll give him a shout out. I don't care. His name's Andy from FNS in Pennsylvania. He's been doing it for a very long time. I think he said 30 years. So he knows all about it and he knows what to do, what upgrades to make on every boat that he does. I think he upgrades the trailers to tandem axle, puts brakes on both of them, even for the H's. You look at some of these other boats, especially an X19 with a 200 or 175, they've got a single axle trailer on
mm,
it. And Andy doesn't think that a single axle is good enough. So I had to do some research because I'd rather a single axle, it's less to break, right?
right.
Um, I had to do some research on if it was sufficient or not for the stuff that we do. And unfortunately not. I have to go to a tandem axle now. But if I don't do the H18, but right now I've got an 1810, it's a G3 with a 115 on. I'm going about 42, 43 full load. Um, the H18 would be smaller, would be a foot smaller, but I'd get more speed. Right, I'd get in the fit, like I'd get close to 50. I think they run high 40s, so I'd get that much more horsepower or more
Hmm.
mile per hour. But the deck space sucks, compared to what I have now. So I don't know if I want to do that. I don't want to skim on deck space because I've got a son, I've got a bunch of people that go fishing with me, team tournaments, and we're
Sure.
big. I'm a big boy. I'm 6'2", 210. So all this stuff comes into play on when you're trying to buy a boat. But then you look at loan price. I'm throwing a lot at you, I know. But you look at loan prices now. If you get over that 50 grand mark, you can get 240 months, right? Am I going to live for 240 months? I don't know. That's a hell of a lot of time, but you can minimize, especially with rates now. You can minimize your payment a little bit by going into that 50 grand. So that kind of gives me the opportunity to, you know what? Let's add something else to it. You know what I mean? And there's a very sharp looking boat at this place. I'm not going to tell anybody because I don't want anybody to grab it. But I'm looking really heavily at that H20. But I keep going back and forth on, you know, is the storage for the rods enough? Are the tubs better or good enough for me, or do I need the X19 carpeted ones? Right. The 2024 C deck on the X19s is different than the 2025 versions, and I like the 2025
Mhm.
versions more, and that's way more expensive. Tom, I'm stressing out. You got to help me here. You got to help me. You've been on your boat for you've done a handful of videos. I've seen them all. They're awesome. If you haven't checked out Tom Redington on YouTube, go do it. Go subscribe. We subscribed the other day. Some really great content you're coming out with, and it's all on that
Thank you.
aluminum rig. So I love it. It's really great. But like, what have you? Again, what do you like about it? What don't you like about it? Is probably the bigger question.
Yeah, I had somebody tell me a long time ago about boats. He said, the thing that's gonna determine your enjoyment or use of it more than the boat itself. He said, like, is really it's how you outfit it, and you're better off like if you can go with if you're torn between somebody's looking at, well, I can buy a 20 or 21 footer, but it's going to be stripped down. I can't put poles or the graphs I want, or a bigger trolling motor and stuff, or the right batteries on it. Or I can go with the smaller boat or less expensive one, and then put the upgraded trolling motor, put two poles on it because I like to fish shallow all the time. Put the premium batteries on there. Get the graphs that I want. To me, that always wins. The bigger boat, it's going to be a drier, softer ride getting to the place, but once and you're going to be able to store more stuff. The trade off is, I mean, at the end of the year, every year, I look at all this stuff that I tote around and I use like 20% of it, and the rest is just like all this security blanket. Like, well,
Mm-hmm.
I used this 6 years ago at one tournament, or if I got a co-angler and he starts, I never throw this, but if he catches him on it, well, I better be carrying one because I need this, and I can't just have one. I need to have 15 of them just in case it could be a gold or a fire tiger or a red or all that crap. So it's like you kind of forces yourself, but having rigging the boat out right, there's nothing worse than having the big one. You're going to end up you're kind of fooling yourself. You're going to not be pleased with you went with the smaller trolling motor or the batteries, and it's wearing out 4 hours into the day. You're going to end up buying it anyway, so the cost is going to be there. So to me, it's like I'm a big advocate of rig it out the way and how I like to fish versus you versus somebody else. It's all different. What the most important things are going to be, but rig it out the way you need to, and then if you can't rig out the more expensive boat or the bigger one, then I think you'd be happier with the smaller. Then small versus, or at least the layout of the H20, like those plastic tubs and stuff. I have no issue with those. I've always hated carpet in my boxes. Like to me, that stuff gets wet in there, and it's so hard to get those dry again. Like
Mm-hmm.
even in the Texas heat of the summer, I mean, you just can't get them wet. And moisture is like the number one enemy in a boat. You get a tiny bit in there, and it just like it's rusting all your stuff. So
Yeah.
I kind of like the plastic tubs. Uh, I was impressed how deep the storage is. It the storage boxes are taller. I saw like the layout, and I saw like the number of compartments. I thought, man, I'm gonna have to really scale back my tackle. And then I mean they're deep. I mean they way down in there. So
Yeah. They
uh,
almost follow the contour of the V a little bit, right to the
yeah, yeah.
to the
So
bottom, right?
yeah, so that they're deep. I can pile a lot of stuff in there. The rod box and the 20. I mean, I think I measured. You could put literally a 10-foot rod in there, so there's no issue there. There's no organizer in the H20, which a few years ago I thought those were better, and then after those things are, most all of us have pulled them out in the last few years and just gone to rod socks. You end up busting the guides off and those organizers. It's a great idea. Somebody's going to figure it out at some point, something that locks them in, and you can get your jerk bait out of the very bottom one and not tangle 15 rods
Mm-hmm.
coming out. But
Yep. Yep.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
just a mess. So,
Those are going away.
and
I guarantee it.
yeah. So
They
the
have to.
H20 in terms of, I don't feel like I'm limited. Like, wow, this is too Spartan of a layout. Like it's got those bigger. It's got two tubs in the center, a couple on the side, and they're pretty big kind of coffins sort of boxes. Where I don't like the smaller ones because then it's just kind of cramped. I'd rather have a fewer but bigger ones,
Yep.
and it's good for that. The only thing I wish it would have would be like a little day box or two, like something, just a small little cubby or something. And what I've done now is just take a small box and leave it on the top, but just
Yep.
something like, like your wacky O-ring tool and maybe a split ring pliers. Like I'm to the age I need reading glasses, somewhere to stash those there. Just if I could, I would put like a little box somewhere, one or two of those and like one or two bags of baits, just that one you're using today, the trailer you got to keep on putting on or something. So there's not that, but like I said, putting a little smaller box in one of those other is a quick way to get around it. But yeah, the layout on the H20, I came from a top of line bass boat layout before in a 21 footer, and I don't feel like I'm like it's just not fancy enough or nice enough to be able to store what I need. It works out
Yeah.
pretty well.
I wonder if you can like almost outfit a little day box into that step. You find a good welder or a good guy that with
Yeah.
metal, you might be able to put something in there, or maybe that's what they come out with down the road. But
Well,
the go ahead. Sorry.
oh, and the other thing is I get, there's so many good dry bags and waterproof duffels and all that stuff now too. What I find myself doing a lot of times is just have a dry bag, throw it out there, and and especially if it's something I don't normally do, like I would do that in the summer even. If I was going just smallmouth fishing for a day or something, I'd just have one of those bags. I'd throw it in there in the bottom, and I didn't feel like reorganizing the boat. And
Yeah.
it, the other thing with that bigger storage, the 20, it's I do like, to me, the bigger ones are nice just because instead of having everything crammed in, and you can organize stuff in the smaller boats and have everything nice and neat. The problem is there's only so much storage. So your drop shot box, if you decided, well, I need a drop shot, you have it, but you got to dig out like 6 boxes to get down to it. Where those bigger boxes allow you to, instead of cramming, if you have the discipline to not cram it to the top, you can have stuff more accessible and easier to get to.
Nobody wants to run out of power when they're on the water. There is a better way. Introducing the Charge Marine Power Management Station from PowerPole. PowerPole Charge.
Unfortunately, you went into slow mo robot mode again. But I'm gonna bet that the gist of it was there's plenty of storage in those bins for to do whatever you want to do. And I'm gonna compare it to the G3 that I have. So I got an 1810. It's got the center rod box, which is kind of a pain to get to when it's in the driveway. I'm almost leaning over to try to get it. I almost have to get in the boat to get to those rods. So I love the fact that the rod locker's on the side now. And I think a lot of boats are doing that now. But the G3's got the middle rod box, and then it's got just two compartments on either side of it, and it's a big bin.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only two. And then you obviously have the ones behind the passenger in the console seat, right? That fits. I think what's the number? Is it what's the Plano size? I forget what the size is, but
Oh, the 3700s.
that's what it is. Yeah, 37s.
Yeah.
This one might actually fit 36s, but I can fit like 5 or 6 in them. So I can use that as storage as well. You look at this H20. I mean, I think I'm doubling the storage size from my G3. So that is an upgrade for me. When I'm thinking of it mentally, saying, all right, well, storage is one of the problems in my boat now, and that's something I'm looking for in a bigger boat. The X19 does the trick. The H19 probably not. H18 probably not. It's probably lacking a little bit, and that H20 just gives me that extra, the extra edge as far as space. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of guys take that right side one. If you're looking at the deck from the seats, the right side one, the top. So I think Andy was telling me from FNS, he was telling me that a lot of guys take that out, and you get more storage because it goes underneath the actual hull. So I don't know if that's an option, but it's definitely something to think about. There's some really great storage on these boats, even though they're tubs. And you made some really great points about those tubs being beneficial for the type of fishing that you do or the type of area that you're in. Some guys do prefer carpet. I don't. I'm with you. I don't prefer carpet in my bins just because, like you said, they get wet, gross. It's better in a rod locker because it almost provides some sort of cushion.
Yeah.
But a lot of guys outfit. They put a little almost. What's the word I'm looking for? Almost, it's something like a pillow underneath the rod, so they're laying on it or something. A lot of guys outfit that type of thing. But the one thing I do love about the X's is the built-in coolers. So if they can figure out how to put like a built-in cooler in the H's, I mean that'd be a game changer because there's no cooler, which is kind of a bummer. You know what I mean? There's also what was I just going to say? So the seats underneath, underneath the seats on the H is one big compartment, whereas the X's, it's individual storage under each seat. So some guys like that, some guys don't. So if you're driving and need to get something under there, on an X, it's really easy. In an H, you're going to have to get off your ass. So
Right.
So that's another big difference. But again, so if we're talking about education and educating the people that are listening, the H series boat is a price point boat, and this is from all the and I could be accurate, I could be not, but from my understanding, the H series is a boat that is built and manufactured easier than the X. So it's quicker to build, so the lead time on them is a lot less than the X. There's less packages on the H, which allow them to build it quicker than the X, because the X has a ton of different packages. And the other big difference about the H is obviously the max horsepower engine, right? So the H20 is loaded for a 175, whereas the X19 is loaded for that 200. Now, a lot of people will think, well, it's a 20-footer. Why is it only 175? And that's something that a lot of people are griping about or complaining about online, saying this 20-footer should hold a 200. But if you look at the differences on why, so there's a plastic gas tank in the H20, and there's an aluminum gas tank in the X. And the X holds a 40-gallon capacity. The H holds a 36-gallon capacity, I believe. So you have that weight distribution because that tank sits in the back with the battery compartment in the H. The X the battery's a little bit more forward, and the beam is wider. So it's more stable for that 200. The H series, again, is a little narrower. I think it's a 93 versus a 95-inch beam, but the weight distribution of that plastic tank and the batteries more towards the back don't allow it to actually have that 200 capacity engine. And those are the main differences in these things. It's pretty wild when you get to thinking about it. I mean, I've been in the manufacturing space for a long time and understand like standardizing stuff to get done quicker. So when I heard about that, I was like, that makes a lot of sense, right? You run it down a manufacturing line quicker. Obviously, it's going to be cheaper for you to make that boat, which allows you to price it at a different point. And obviously, that price point is very advantageous to you and me, because that's one of the things we're looking at. We want to get into. We don't want to break the bank, to get on the water every once in a while. So a lot of factors go into these things, and it's pretty wild when you get to it now. I mean, the options for aluminum boats 10 years ago were nothing. Like, oh well, I'll just go get this one because they're all the same. Now they're stupid.
Yeah.
But for me, the most important things, I'd love to get into this with you, the front and the back, right? So that's battery compartments and electronics and trolling motor, right? So what'd you do in the back? I guess let's start with the trolling motor. So what'd you use for a trolling motor? What'd you upgrade to?
So I've been using that Force for a few years now, and that's the thing. It's with that brushless motor. I mean, it's literally. I mean, all of them. They're like twice the power of what the the old ones were trolling motors, and so I mean, I love that thing. It's so easy on the batteries that and I used it. I mean, this is getting into the batteries a little bit too, but that thing, like when I like going to Okeechobee or fishing grass fields in Rayburn or something, or up on the Mississippi River trying to cut across those pad flats and stuff, and bending over and having to clear, pull that thing up. It weighs 80 pounds when it's full of grass, and having to do that just over and over, and just it wasn't even worth going back there. You're just fighting it the whole time, and you can't get across. I mean, my last year using it, I probably had to probably 5 times all year. I had to raise the trolling motor to be able to clear it. I mean, it's just those days are over. You can just plow through, you name it. So
is this stock prop?
I'll use if it's total like total thick vegetation, like at Okeechobee or Mississippi River backwater or something, I'll go to the vegetation one. But 95% of the time, I'm using the standard one.
So they do have that upgraded vegetation.
They do, yeah, they have an optional vegetation one. You lose a little bit of thrust, but I mean, it has so much already. It's like not like you're gonna miss it. It just clears off the grass a little better.
Right. What size shaft is your force?
I use the 50, the shorter 50? One. Yep.
So that was another one thing that I was looking at, because they priced me out as a 52-inch shaft for the Quest. I was going back and forth with Garmin, Minn Kota, Lowrance. I don't know if I was ever going to go with the Power Pole move, despite the sign behind me. But I've had a Ghost. The thing rips. 24 volt Ghost with an 18-footer with a 115, and I mean, I'm getting 5 miles an hour on high. And that was my first brushless. So it's sentimental to me. But as I research a little more, I want to try something different. So I've heard the Quest, from a quality point of view, is the way to go from people that are close to me. I mean, opinions vary, obviously. But again, the thrust is all very similar when you get to that size. I actually think the Ghost is on the low end now, to be honest with you. And they don't actually, when you first look at brushless, they don't actually throw a force number at you. They say it's estimated at 96 for the 24, and upwards of 110 to 120 on the 36 volt. Did you go? You went with a 36 volt system, obviously, because you're fishing a lot of current, a lot of wind. Did you go with 36 volt batteries, or did you go with 12s?
I went with 36. I went with the so I actually went with two 36 volt ones, basically for the redundancy. Like the 12 volts, you just, if one battery goes bad, it'll still run on 12, but I mean, you just have one. First, you have the 236 that I run the Millertechs. They have a 10-year warranty, so it's like, I mean, basically you have them for 10 years, so it's, we'll be on to the next thing by then. But but it's the redundancy. So I mean, that just kills a trip. Your battery goes out, and then you're fighting that or something. And it's having two, I think, is honestly overkill between the brushless motor plus the just the weight of the aluminum. I watched a video the other day, and it was talking about how all these lithium in our phone and batteries in the boat and stuff, they're really meant to be operated at 20 to 80% power, and it's a longer life and all that stuff. So I just thought, well, let me see how. And I was running a power pole charge for the last like 3 years. So this year I just went to a standard battery charger, so I don't charge them on the move. I fished. This was not little ponds either. I was on Rayburn, Toledo Bend, and we were talking Fork and stuff, big lakes. I fished 5 days in a row without charging them, and they weren't fully charged when I went. They were like 94 or something. After the 5th day, I finally charged them in, because it just like was so starting to chafe me, not like charging them. I just felt like this is wrong. I need to plug them in.
Yep.
One trolling motor battery was at 60% power, and the other's at 62.
Really?
I mean, I could fish like 2 weeks without charging the batteries. It's crazy. Like
I don't understand it, because I believe from the video you're running 100 amp hour 36 volt.
Yeah.
Right. You're not doing the 60 amp one, right? So All right, we're gonna throw some math at you. So
Actually, I'm sorry. They are dual 60. So
they're
it's 260.
60s.
Yeah, they're 260. Sorry.
That boggles my mind even more because if you think about runtime on these brushless, right, and most of them are running around 50 amps at max capacity, right? So you're never running 50 amps,
Yeah.
all day, right? You're running probably, I'm going to say average 50 to 70% power on a day. I'm going to say 3 hours most, 3 to 4 hours a day, right? Do you think that's accurate? Do you think that's less on an
Yeah, that's
8 hour
probably about,
tournament day,
yeah, that's probably about right.
right? Depending on what you're doing. Like if you're burning the bank, you're probably doing a little more. If you're out, scoping or look, sitting on a spot, you're not using it at all. So you look at 60 versus 100 amp hours. At 50 amps for 100 amp hours, you run 2 hours. Your runtime's 2 hours. So
Yeah.
for you to say you've got 5 days in on a 60 amp hour battery, right? Because when you get 236s in parallel, because you obviously have the duplicate, that 60 amp hour doesn't increase; it stays there. So you've got 60 amp hours on a 36-volt system. You're running 50 to 70% power. So let's just say you're running 50%. And typically, I think it's around 20 amps, 15 to 20 amps that you're running on a 50% cycle with a trolling motor. You should be running, what's that? So it's 60 divided by, let's just say 20 for shits and giggles, right? So you're looking at 3 hours, right? So I don't understand the math. How is that possible? Unless you're only running that trolling motor, for maybe 2 hours a day, or one and
Yeah,
a half.
yeah, and I'm typically on the trolling motor too. I'm not sitting still too much. The other thing too is like, so it's like the draw is not, it's not linear. It's like the curve, like the amount of you're drawing at like 20 and 30%, and it like when you go up, it's just I know with the old lead ones, it used to be it's like more heat and you're drawing more current, and
Yeah,
it's not like if you're drawing 10 amps and then you draw 30, you're not drawing. It doesn't go through deplete your battery 3 times as fast. It's like 10 times as fast or 20 times or something. So it's like I'm running at 20 to 40% power almost all the time. Whereas on my old, like that four tracks before, I'd be running 50 to 70% all the time. And I mean, I don't know. It seems like that motor, it's not even, it's not even breaking a sweat. So
yeah, and that's odd because a lot of guys are using the 100 amp hour batteries. So for you to say 60, I know guys up here that are doing 60, and in my head, I'm going, they fish way more than me. They fish a lot more turns than I do, and they're on the water a lot more than I am, but they're only using 60 amp hour batteries. Why wouldn't they jump to the 100? But they never have any issues, and I'm always curious about it. So for you to say that you're using the 60s and having zero problems on it, that's huge information for me because I'm
yeah,
looking at 12-volt 100 amp hour Dakota lithiums for this rig. Each one of them is about 27 to 30 pounds. You're looking at about 90 pounds in the back. If you get 236s, you're looking at probably 10 pounds lighter and about the same price, kind of. Maybe a little bit
yeah.
more expensive for 36s, but it's lighter. There's less space in the back of those H20s too. So, is there even space for 3 12 motor batteries down there?
I was looking at putting two cranking ones, just a second one there just for the duplicate, but
Yeah,
it would be tight. You could get a fourth one, but really it's with three, it's optimum. So having the 236 and then one, I have a big 195 amp hour cranking battery back
yeah,
there.
yeah. I think so. Yeah, but so you're saying that it's really only 2 on one side and 1 on the other? Like
Yeah, I mean,
that's the space it's made for, but maybe you could fit another 12 in there somewhere.
well, the problem is, you get and I've got power poles, so in the
Oh
Pro
yeah, for the
Series, so it
pumps.
has. Yeah, so you got two pumps back there, and then you got your battery charger, and it starts to get tight. So you can put four batteries in, but it's then you have to start finagling your pumps and all that, and uh, with the three, it works out where it's not cramped and everything on top of each other. It's not a struggle at all to get three in.
Okay. Yeah, I wonder if anybody's ever rigged an H20 with the battery charger under the seats. Right? It seems like it might be an all right place to be if it's dry, anyways. But I don't know. I have to look.
Yeah,
I'd
mine's just
have
right
to
there
see
in
it.
the. Yeah, mine's just right in the back. But yeah.
How big is that 36-volt charger?
It's pretty small. It's a combo of 36 and so it does all three
It
batteries.
does more.
And it's trying to like the size of like a dictionary or something like that, or maybe a little smaller. It's just
Okay. Okay.
not real big.
Nice. Yeah. That whole 60 amp hour, 100 amp hour, man. That blew my mind. Like I would have sworn you would have gotten the 100 amp hour, and
Yeah, and
that's huge.
so I ran into this fall. I was fishing a lake and I ran into Nick LeBrun and we jumped in each other's boats. He's like, hey, and we both have the same battery sponsor. And we compared and he said, oh yeah, you run the same as me, you know. And he said you can't kill that, can you? I'm like, no. And he's like, yeah. He's like, you can't. He's like, I tried. He's like sight fishing, like all day practice. Like you can't kill it. It's
Yeah, I love that. All right. Well, you just made my mind up about something.
And I talked to after watching that video, so you're supposed to keep your batteries, you get a longer life on your batteries at the 20 to 80% power, and the video I watched, the guy was saying that hey, charge them every day is bad for them, and that it's killing life, and having too big of batteries, that's overkill because you're not drawing them down. So I talked to the owner of the company about it, and we started off by laughing. It's like crazy where this in this world now that a couple of years ago you could never get through a day of fishing. You're always worried. Well, if I'm fishing a tournament, I run my aerator all day. My battery's gonna be dead, and every time I start the boat, the graphs go dark. And here we are now. We're like, oh, I've too much, and and he laughed about that too, and said, yeah, said, tell you what, if you let it down in that lower range, instead of the batteries lasting 15 years, maybe they only last you 12 years now. But he said, would you trade those 3 years, extra life on this battery for like one day a year where you ran out of battery power, or two or three, especially on a tournament day or something?
Yeah.
And obviously not. So he said, if I was you, the way you fish, he's like, charge them up every night. Don't think twice about it.
Yeah.
And, just count your blessings that you're not worried about the batteries dying. You're only worried about having too much power. And that was good enough for me.
Perfect. Yeah. And do the Militex have the app? Explain that so that tells you about the battery. 'Cause I know
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you're sponsored by Militech, so let's
Uh-huh.
give them definitely a shout out. The app looks like it's phenomenal. So explain that a
It's,
little bit for people listening.
well, yeah, I mean, it's really simple too. I mean, you just
Yeah.
install it, and then anything that has Bluetooth in your boat, it'll pop up there, and you name your batteries. You'll see the Militech batteries, and you can just name it you're cranking and trolling motor or whatever. And then with the app, it'll auto connect, and you just open the app, connect to the batteries, and you can see what the percentage is. And then it has like error codes and cycles, and you get all that detailed information. But really, all I want to know is it at 90%, 12%, where is it at?
Yeah, that's
So,
awesome. That's
yeah,
great. And I think you can do that. Did you hook your Garmin up to the engine as well? So Garmin's
I
do that
did.
as well? That seems like an awesome thing to do too. Is Garmin the only one that does that?
I think you can do that now with most all of them.
You can.
It's not too complex. To me, it's like I had Mercury for a long time and had the SmartCraft gauge, and you can see your
Oh
hours
yeah.
and error codes. But I love the fuel. That's what I use for mostly. One, you can see what the optimum cruising range is, and then also those tanks. The fuel gauges are always
You jump in. Yeah.
it's like a half. Like you run it 2 minutes and it's down to half, and then you run it 4 more days and it's at half. They're not very accurate. With this, I know it's a 36-gallon tank. I can see that I ran 8 gallons out today, 4 gallons, 12 gallons this week or whatever. And it's one of those. If you don't feel like going to the gas station on the way to the lake the next day or something, you know that okay, I have 18 gallons left. I'm good. Or oh, I'm down to 6 gallons. I need to fill up. So I like knowing exactly how much fuel I have.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great
Yeah.
little tidbit. Because I have a problem right now. I can't read my engine hours. I can't find a Yamaha dealer close enough for me to get over there. So
Yeah.
I don't know how long I've been doing it. So that's
Yeah. For
definitely something.
break-in,
What's that?
Oh, for break-in, and then the
Oh
other like
yeah.
temperature and stuff, so you can see your water temperature. Like if you're in the there again, you're in Florida fishing the swamps, or you're in the
Yep.
river or something. You're fishing in grass, and you're always worried about the motor overheating. And then if it does overheat and it shuts down, and then it's like forever idling out of a shallow spot because you can't get back on plane. That's where having that, where you can pull up the temperature right there and have it showing when you're running around. You can see exactly where you're at, and if you need to stop and clean it off. So yeah,
Now,
that's pretty slick.
is that something that is always in those Yamaha engines, and you just need something to connect to it, or is it an aftermarket deal you have to ask for? Say, hey, put this Bluetooth, transmitter in this so I can get, my Hummingbird or my Garmin attached to it.
Yeah, it's part of the NEMA network. So if you have your
Oh,
boat set up with NEMA, and you're probably going to need it for your something on your electronics anyway, and then it just ties in there. And I believe there's one little special connector you need, but basically it's just you, if you have a NEMA network set up on your electronics, it just plugs right in then.
I've obviously heard the term. I've never used it or researched it at all. Explain what NEMA does and what it is.
So it's just a standardized, and it's probably it's kind of almost going away in bass boats a little bit with the wireless, and everything's on Ethernet cords, higher data, but it's basically so any like that. So your motor and your GPS pucks and all that stuff, it's just a standardized plug. So it'd be like a few years ago, where like Apple had the old Apple plug-in, and you had to have the special Apple iPhone cord, and now everything's just going to USB-C, where
Mm.
one plug fits your camera and it'll fit your computer and everything. And that's basically what NEMA is, just for the boats. So if there's just a standardized plug and network that'll run most every app.
So,
Like I said, everything's going more advanced now, where between Bluetooth and wireless and Ethernet, a lot of that stuff's on higher end stuff. So it was cool for a couple of years, and it's almost obsolete now.
yeah, do you see it going away, NEMA, and having some sort of wireless connection to an engine, or does that
Uh,
always exist?
I think a lot of it's headed that way. It's
Yeah.
probably more so where it becomes a value, or like yachts and stuff. These big boats where
Oh yeah.
you're putting in stereos and monitor systems, and all these sorts of accessories that you want interlinked, and then NEMA is just a standardized network for them. On bass boats, a lot of man, that wireless, and all the we finally got trolling motors a few years ago where you didn't need to run the cable up there, and it was so
Yeah.
nice, the built-in transducer, and like, oh, thankfully, after years of doing that. And then along comes live scope, and what are we doing but hanging wires out there? But to me, that's the next step, where all that, like, you just snap your live scope into the shaft of the trolling motor, and transducers work. I understand it's transmitted from water, up to air, so there's,
Yeah.
but there has to be better than, you got a $1,500 or $750 live scope transducer down there, and you have this little cord that, God forbid you ever nick it, you just
Yeah.
killed you killed it and can't fix it.
Do you think the fish are going to start adapting to that signal and noticing? Do you think you'll ever see bass behavioral changes based on the sonar that's going down there from a forward
Yeah, the
facing?
the ping of the sonar. I mean, they for years in Texas on Lake Fork, they track that, and it's. I mean, you could chase fish around with the 2D, like the regular sonar. Like, I'm surprised at that, and I don't know if the higher frequencies, they can't hear it as well, that they're not, uh, you know, that, or if they're just so used to it now because it's just all the time. But
Yeah.
you know, a lot of fish, I mean, they're definitely more pressured. I know, like, we go to some place like with spotted bass, like Smith Lake or something. The first time when you went out there and you would throw out in those points and all of a sudden target fish, I mean, they would come flying to your bait. You just tell they'd never been fished for like that. And the same
Hmm.
with a lot of the smallmouth places, like Champlain a couple of years ago. And now it's like I think it's less to be the signal, just that they catch on to being targeted, and what's fake, and uh, they seem to adapt. Every time we thought that, like, the next lure is, it's so hot for a while, they figure it out pretty quick.
Okay. Yeah. Very true. Very true. So let's talk about the ride for the H20 because I'm
Hmm.
curious about this. there's been chatter, on some of the blogs where, I browse every once in a while, that the longer boat is going to slap a little more in rougher water. Have you noticed that? Like, what's the comparison of your ride versus your Phoenix ride?
Yeah, I've not had it in a lot of big water like hard runs. It's been launching and reasonable runs. It's definitely, and I don't have a lot of aluminum to really give a good answer on that. I know
Okay.
the first time I was on water and there was a small chop, not like a big one, but I don't know if it almost like boat wags or something. But I heard like a slap, and I thought, oh my god, I like on metal. I'm like, oh my god, my transducer's loose. And it's just a different sound than fiberglass. It's got
It is.
the fiberglass when you first get it, or you hear somebody else coming. It almost sounds like crunching glass or something like that being crunched under it. And the first thing, it just kind of scared me. I heard a couple times like, oh my god, the transducer's hitting,
Mm-mm.
and now I don't even hear it. But it's so that's just different. Um, so
Do you get any vibration on the trolling motor up front if you're in minimal chop versus a medium chop? Right? Have you noticed that at all?
not yeah, not really.
No. So that's one of the things with my boat now, and I think it's just there's not a lot of foam in this thing. It's again, it's very thin aluminum.
Hmm.
So for the first year that I had my boat, my Ghost would just bounce. And it was annoying because it would rattle out some of the screws, and
Oh, really?
you'd look and you'd see this thing vibrating even in minimal chop. So what I ended up doing was taking a troll tamer and outfitting it, because the Ghost post is you can actually outfit it and drill a hole into it to
Hmm.
have it sit right into a troll tamer on the deck, and it's made a world of difference. There's no real vibration anymore. But I'm just curious if that's my boat or if that's kind of all aluminums, and with the 20-footer being extra long, if you saw any of that.
Yeah, nothing that's I don't know. I don't think that it's like noticeably vibrating or anything up there.
No.
It's I was out the other day. I mean, it was rough on Fork and a couple of our lakes, like Fork and Toledo Bend, where you just can't. There's boat lanes. It's standing timber,
Yeah.
and you have to. You just have to. You can't take on the waves you want to or whatever. You just have to turn and go into it. And that's the first time I had it like in uh that's just uncomfortable riding in any boat in that.
Yeah.
And there was like that mile stretch there was uncomfortable in the H20 as well, and every glass boat I've ever had is just not fun going through that. But
No. No. Hmm.
I mean, outside of that, I've run it in pretty big stuff, and honestly, I wasn't worried about the ride in rough stuff. It seems like it doesn't have the speed, so I know like that Phoenix you could get going. When I test drove with the guy that bought it, it was ripping, and you can get to a certain speed when you start going 55 to 60, and you can just start spanning those waves.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that on when the chop, the boat just doesn't have that same speed where you can get across sometimes. So
Okay.
that just means you trim it down, and you just take your time a little more. But that'd be the only drawback. Where a high speed, and it'd be the same with the X19 or the X21, where sometimes being able to be fast enough, if the gap of the waves is here, and if you're slow, if you're going slower, you're going to start coming down
Hmm.
and hitting more. Versus you're going fast enough, you just start spanning the gap. So
Yeah.
you don't even notice that it's that rough until you let off, and then you get to the spot and you're like, oh crap, this is like I can't believe I was running across that. So I would say that would be maybe the only thing I noticed. The biggest thing I was worried about is I just heard from people, fire or aluminum drifts more. It's going to be tougher in wind. If you're out there scoping in the middle, you're going to be spinning around, hard to control. And I really haven't noticed that on the trolling motor. I do notice it like when I'm taking it off the trailer, putting it on the trailer, coming up to a dock.
Yeah.
It it's like the old the drifting or something. It does
Yeah.
you have to get it kind of, you can't at the last minute maneuver it, or you have to take the drift into account a little more.
Yep.
I notice it there. But fishing wise, like even out in the wind, I've not really noticed a struggle at all. I don't really notice any difference in the tracking of it that way.
Okay. That's a good
It
observation.
will, the will, I will say you will notice it though if I'm like if it's really windy and it's one of those the wind's blowing you into the bank. Like if you pull up the trolling motor, that wind's going to push you, and maybe it's the higher sides or whatever, but it's going to push you into the bank quick. Where it's
Yes.
like you better get back to the big motor and start that thing and take off quicker than like the glass boat. It's like you kind
Hmm.
of walk back there on that. If you're real close to the bank, it's like I that's where I notice the drift as well. So in
Yeah.
that, like I said, maybe higher. The flip side is what I've those glass boats when you anchor lock, you spot lock there, just sitting lower. The downside is taking water over the front. You can sit there, but it keeps on like every six waves going to break over the front and get the deck wet and stuff.
Yeah.
The higher side on the H20, I've been impressed on some pretty sizable waves where I could just sit there and take zero water over the front. You could actually stand comfortably up front and not be like popping out. And the trolling, even with that 50-inch shaft, the shorter shaft, it's not popping out and just
Good to
like
know.
blowing out each time, and then waves coming over. So
That was good. No,
impressed with that.
that was gonna be my question. So how far under the water do you usually keep your transducer and your motor on the troll?
It depends. If I'm fishing shallow, I'm keeping it up pretty high,
Yeah.
and the so just more clearance I get back there. If I'm going deep, then I have it. I'm not all the way down, but plunge down most of the way.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm
And
I'm always throwing side arms, so the lower that thing sits, like the high shaft, the long shaft doesn't work too well for me trying to side arm it all the time.
yeah, I mean that's the drawback that I'm looking at is with the 52 versus I think there's the was it the 49 on the Quest, I think it's a 49 and a 52. But I'm curious if the 49 is even long enough for the stuff that I do. Because typically I'm more of a shallow guy. I'm not really doing much of the deep water stuff. But, so I do a lot of that. Oh, there's Luigi. Oh, there you go.
There we go. Sorry to plug in the phone. Sorry.
Oh, good. No good. Yeah, so, like you said, when you're out deeper, you usually locking that trolling motor down in the water column a little more. If you're shallower, you're burning water. You're putting it up, up in the water column a little more.
Yep.
But you don't see an issue with the 50-inch shaft on the Express.
No, the 50's been fine. That's what I was. It would blow out on my Phoenix there, and now on the I've yet to have it blow out. Like I haven't been trying to fish like summertime offshore ledge on Kentucky Lake or Rayburn or something like that, where you get in the really or Champlain or something. You can definitely. I mean, at some point you're going to get big enough where it's going to be blown out. But
Yeah, yeah.
like it was, like I said the other day, I was out there fishing on the windiest bank where it's blowing 38, 39 like all afternoon. I mean, just horrible. Like
Yeah.
hard to stand up in the boat, and I mean, it did not blow out once. So I was pleasantly surprised with that.
That's good to know. Good to know. Awesome. All right, so let's change gears a little bit. Let's talk content because you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that you're really focusing more on that, and I can tell with the first few videos, right? You've been doing a lot of it. You're releasing stuff more consistently than you have in the past.
Hmm.
What's the mindset behind the content? What niche are you trying to fill? What audience are you trying to grab? Talk about your content a little bit.
Yeah, it's uh, going to be more geared towards shallow and just kind of like power fishing. That's the way I like to fish, and the way I think most of us got uh, involved in the sport. But
Yeah,
mixing in like lately, it's been super cold down here, so the water's dropped into the low 40s and getting colder. Some of the the creeks and stuff are freezing up, so mixing in the electronics as well. But the interesting thing is, I was talking to a buddy about this today, and I got on a good bite the last couple of days. And when you're a tournament fisherman, I've spent my whole life trying to hoard information and not share anything. If
yep,
there's a hot bait, like you're so guarded on what you want to give out, you don't dare like give out the best of the best information. And so I've always just try to keep from sharing that stuff. And now
Yep.
the whole point is like it goes against my basic fiber. But now it's the case of like, well, like people want they're gonna watch if you actually show all the good stuff, and it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of a little bit liberating now to not have to be so veiled, and you can 100% honestly like show everything you're doing, tell the last, and it wasn't necessarily lying, but
Yeah.
like you're telling 80% of it or 90% of it, but it's that
Yeah.
last little 10% that's what makes a difference.
Yeah.
And telling that those last little things, filling in those gaps, that's what I can do now.
So, what was the decision behind being more of an educational channel versus maybe going towards a little bit more entertainment, or maybe some tournament videos, or are you planning on doing that as well?
Yeah, the you cut out just a little bit at the end, but you said more educational versus entertainment, and
Yeah. So, are you still doing? You're still doing the Big Bass Battle on My Outdoor TV. Season 5 just came out, I believe. Was that it?
well, if they're showing
Or
it,
6 now, I guess.
yeah, we did. They're running the old seasons, I guess, because
Yeah.
that we filmed those a while ago. That's been haven't done that show for a few years now.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But that's always, I was a good student. I like the guide part. I've always felt like been a decent teacher, been able to, explain things and kind of put them into more layman's terms that are relatable. And I do enjoy that part of it. And I'm just kind of curious myself, and that I've always been that to me that's what makes fishing fun. It's never like being a pro golfer would be a pretty cool gig, but I
Oh,
think it would
100%.
it would be burnout after a while because they're like robots. If you're a robot that can repeat a swing exactly every time and hit the same shot, the same distance every time, and it's the same thing over and over. And fishing is it's 1,000 variables every hour that you're dealing with, and it's always different. And like trying to figure that out, to me, that's it when it sucks and you can't catch them, and then all of a sudden you put the puzzle together, and then all of a sudden it clicks, and
Yeah.
then you're like, like I guarantee you we can go to that point over there, and that one like up there, I know that one's got, look at the rock on that. I guarantee we catch them there. When you figure that
Yeah.
out, that's like the coolest thing. And then you go run them. I mean, that's what we all live for, and that's what I want to share with people is just how to put that together so they can do it themselves. That's what makes me love the sport more than
Yeah.
I love catching big ones and all that. But it's the when you figure it out, like solve the puzzle. It to me, it's just like it's the world's best crossword or whatever board game you could ever play. That puzzle.
I got you. I got you. Is it? Are you ever going to do any tournament videos? Tournament recaps for any local clubs or any of the opens you might end up maybe doing?
Yeah, yeah. With those, I'll do them, and especially some team stuff with my brother, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
I roomed with I roomed with Scott Martin for most of my time on the FLW tour, and I was there at the inception of when he started filming everything, and it was just he'd be sticking his cameraman sticking their camera in your face,
Yeah.
and like Lake Fork guy Justin Rackley when he started at Lake Fork, he was this aspiring guide, and I helped him, and he got a job with like Shimano, and he was like a rep there, and I thought it was a dream job, and he leaves to I'm just gonna go film stuff, and I went on a couple trips with him, and he's filming himself going to the barbecue joint. I'm like, what is he doing?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm just about like,
Yeah.
this is the color that you should fish in the spring, and like all that stuff, and it's funny. That's what I struggle at. I can't believe anybody really gives a crap about what I'm getting at the convenience store, but I've had some fun with that. I do like it, from years of guiding and just hanging with buddies. I mean, that's half the fun of fishing is just the goofy stuff that happens and the oh my God, can you believe what this guy takes, for lunch every day on the boat or
Yeah. Yeah.
so I'm trying to actually I never think to record half that stuff, and I do have fun with it on Instagram and on social stories and stuff. Just some of the goofy road signs you see on the road or menu items you see at the cafe and stuff. Some of that stuff, it's like it's that's the stuff it's kind of a little giggle, and other people get a laugh out of it too. So if I can, somebody who's stuck in the office can't go fishing that day, but they get a giggle at me losing a fish or getting a hook in my hand or jumping one off or something.
Hmm.
Well, that's maybe I helped him out that way. So
Yeah, Rackley was. I mean, he started at the right time too. He
yeah,
started when all those fishing guys were basically reinventing the sport and putting it all on socials. Right, that was before it was so overly congested, and
oh
you know
yeah,
they did it right. They found a niche that hadn't been tapped because they I think they were the first ones to actually just show everything they were doing. Well,
yeah,
every other fisherman in the world was like, "No, I'm not showing my secrets. I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing." And they were
yeah.
just throwing everything out there, and it was watchable. And they were almost pioneers of fishing education on social media. And they turned it into Guggen Baits and turned it into fishing adventures and all that stuff. And a lot of people are
I,
following suit with a lot of what they do. Um, it's I've watched it all. It's entertaining. It's fun. I like their adventures. It they do a good job with all the video stuff now. Because they can hire somebody to get the drone shots. They can get a guy on the boat all day with the greatest camera. High definition. And they got an editor who's professionally doing all their editing and putting it together. They have the resources to get all of that done. Um, and I think that's what makes them successful now. But it obviously wasn't that case back in the day. It's wild. That's one of the things I don't like about editing and
mm,
recording because
yeah,
I just want to be out there fishing. I don't have to worry about that camera's on. Is that camera going? Is this battery dead yet? Like, is this a good angle? Oh, I hate it. But it's the stuff we have to do. And if you look at my YouTube channel, it's not. There's nothing there. I'm trying to do more of this video podcasting stuff as in addition to some other stuff that I'm going to release later this year with my son. But again, it's using GoPros that are 10 years old, so it's not the greatest quality. Um, I've got a 2011 Mac, so I don't have the video editing software. Certainly not going to pay for it because I don't have the money for it. And I'm just going to put it out there and see what happens. You know, do you enjoy recording? I guess you could say the idea
it's
of setting up.
This portion of the podcast is sponsored by Ben's Tackle Shack, the largest family-owned tournament tackle supplier in the Northeast. If you want to be the best, you need the best. So use Ben's Tackle Shack as your trusted source for the highest quality fishing gear. With brands that include Shimano, Daiwa, Yamamoto, Lowe's, Kitech, Strike King, Berkeley, and Zoom, you'll find everything you need at Ben's. So gear up and go fishing. Visit benstackleshack.com for more information.
yeah. Editing I hate. There's an art. The people that are good at it. There's just no way around that. The recording it, like setting it up. I've gotten better about that. In the past, I just didn't want to do it. I could have had so many epic fishing videos in the past, and you're just like, well, I'm not going to take 2 seconds out of catching fish to set up this stupid camera and mess with it.
Yes.
They've gotten a lot better at making them more turnkey and stuff, and it's less obtrusive. And I've been in front of a camera between the show and all this stuff long enough now. I kind of forget it's there. It's not bothersome. Don't feel like you're the Truman Show or something like that. But
Right.
yeah, it's man, it's just a lot of work though with on the backside of it, the editing and making it actually cohesive. And the neat thing is that there has been like it went from just raw and basic, and then people got professional editors and drone shots. But the thing that really is shines through is just authentic. So people that are passionate about it actually, you know, telling you what they're doing, giving good information and stuff. That's still the king, and that is the one thing that for guys like you and me, it doesn't have to be the slickest out there. If it's legit good information, if it's entertaining, if the people are likable or they're giving good information, uh, that kind of all went away in the last 10 years where it doesn't have to be polished. It just people want good content. In a lot of ways, the less edited it is, the more authentic it is, the more people relate to it.
Yeah. And your stuff with the overdubs, it's very clear and concise. So I think that's what you're doing a really good job on, and that's what I enjoyed because you explain everything as it's happening, right? Instead of just having the camera running with the wind
Right.
blowing in the speakers, you're overdubbing and explaining everything that you're doing. So definitely check that out, everybody who's listening. Some great stuff. You're doing a couple live scope videos lately. Your boat reviews are doing really well. I think they're upwards of 20K views now. So the boat is almost like your sidekick here. And it's
It
awesome.
is.
I love it. Any thoughts on, or any? Are you going to be continuing at all with Big Bass Battle, or is that done?
No, that's there was talk of reviving it, and still in touch with the guy who created it and stuff. He's a friend of mine, but
Yeah.
I don't that's the whole fishing show world's kind of with YouTube and stuff. That's there's still like Zona's is a great one, but uh, man, it's even like the tournament recap shows and stuff. That used to be the number one thing I'd always want to watch, the
I know.
Bassmasters and the FLW shows and stuff. And now it's kind of a anachronism. It just going by the wayside. They want to see like they want to watch Ben Milliken or you or me or something fish like 2 days ago or like fishing live today. They don't want to see a recap of a tournament that happened 6 months ago.
Right. And you know what? You know what I think is going away too is the 4-hour live videos. I mean, that's just a pain to watch because you don't know when. There's no action for a while unless you
Right.
catch at a good time. You got to watch for 4 hours. Nobody has that kind of time anymore, and everyone wants that quick fix now, right? So it's a quick fix video. Even the videos that are about an hour, even podcasts, we're going on almost 2 hours. That's easier to watch because you can get in the car, you can drive and listen. If you're sitting there watching a YouTube video for 4 hours, my wife's gonna throw the divorce papers right in my face and go, listen, you got to
Right.
do something else. You're a waste of goddamn space. I just can't do that. But I can watch the 15 to 30-minute videos. Maybe while I'm sitting at my desk. Just kind of have it in my ears and kind of poke over and see a fish catch. After a couple minutes.
Yep.
And that's what I'm trying to capture with my stuff. Going forward is kind of catching that 12 to 18-minute adventure that kind of gives you a storyboard of this is what we're going after. It's kind of like a challenge video. My son's in it because he wanted the YouTube channel, and he's only 7, so a lot of people like him, like catching his first species of a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's the niche I'm trying to get to, is kind of a fun, entertaining, challenging type YouTube video series. And it's only to grow the channel and grow the brand. I mean, I've got less than 100 subscribers now on YouTube, so I need to focus on YouTube. I haven't really focused on it all because I hate recording. But I am a creator, and the editing part of it is pretty fun for me. Like if I had a computer with some better processing power, I'd be doing it right now. I'd love it. It's so frustrating for me to try to edit a video and it just is buffering all the freaking time. So it's like I just get burnt out real quick because I can't do it quick. Like I need something fast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's pretty brutal, but it is what it is. It is what it is. How did this is? I'm curious to know about this too. So, how did My Outdoor TV come to grab or I don't know if they own Big Bass Battle or own the rights to it, but how did that relationship work or start?
That I think it was listed on there. That side of it, I'm not sure to be honest, but I think they've a lot of shows that were on the outdoor channel. I don't know if they had rights in perpetuity or the reruns and stuff. So you still get it's kind of like at this point they're like the Brady Bunch or Leave It to Beaver or something that the old they get just old reruns. So
Okay,
I think it's just along those same lines.
I got you. Are you getting royalties from them?
Unfortunately, I'm not a show owner, so I wish. Actually, I need to go back and see if I can get that Jerry Seinfeld or one of those
Right?
deals.
Yeah.
Where's my royalty check? Yeah, yeah.
How many seasons did you do? 'Cause I don't own outdoor TV, my outdoor TV, so I haven't watched any of these, and I'm not going to pay for it yet. I might later down the road, but I haven't paid for it yet. So explain what it was, because
Yeah,
it
it
seemed
was
pretty fun.
yeah, so we did it it was like 5, 6 years, something like that. Maybe more, somewhere around there. And then we did a offshoot, even like Belize Outdoors, got to go to Belize
Yep.
and film a bunch of shows. That was fun. But yeah, the Big Bass Battle was a neat concept. It was a tournament, and you would get get guys fishing, and it would be, but instead of trying to get the biggest stringer, you're just going for the biggest bass of the day. So you'd
Yep.
fish a little bit different, and get anywhere from 2 teams to 4 teams together, and then everybody going for the big fish. So the fact that anybody could come back, anybody could win it on any cast, and it was
Yeah,
a
it's
lot
fun.
of guys. It was a lot of fork guides and pros that we knew that were just we were having a good time, and people saw that as much as anything. None of us taking it too seriously and giving each other grief, and it was as much as we were trying to make TV, we were all wanting to put it on our buddies too. So
Yeah,
it was that kind of came through, just wanting to one up your buddy. It's basically what we all do every time you go out. If it's fun fishing, or you
correct.
just take your, I'm sure when you take your son, or you go with a buddy, it's always like
Biggest fish
you
wins.
yeah, you want to in the evening, you want them to catch them, but yeah, if you catch just a few more and one a little bigger, then that'll be even better, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you touch on something too, where you pick all your buddies and you go on a fishing trip. That's something I see a lot more on YouTube now. Is a lot of guys are getting together with some of their buddies on tour, or just buddies in general,
Mm-hmm.
going on adventures. Right. So I mean, Scott Martin has had his crew for a while, and they go everywhere. He's got the
Oh yeah.
challenge. I mean, he's got the resources to do whatever the hell he wants. Right. He's got a full time cameraman, full time editor. He's got all that stuff.
Yep.
You got Wheeler going on, a bunch of adventures lately. I forget where he went recently. It's always other countries. They're going to other countries. I mean, Zaldane just went to Africa. He's got his
Yep.
Africa series, right? He's gonna, doing something out there. But that is becoming more and more popular right now. Is just going on a fishing trip with your friends and videoing the whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really fun content, to be honest with you. So if you ever want to go anywhere, Tom, I'm with you. I'll come. All right. If you want to go to Africa, let's go. I'm
Yeah, that
in.
sounds fun to me,
All
man.
right. We'll ship our aluminum rigs over there. As soon as I get my H20, we'll have the H20 series. The
There we
adventure
go.
series, and we'll go over there and get some what's the big fish over there? Parima. What is it? Parima. What are those friggin' fish called? Arapimas.
Oh,
Arapimas. Those are the big ones. But so all right. So we got a lot of content coming from you, down the road and this
mhm.
year. You're going to do the tournament recaps. I hope you do some tournament recaps, because those will be fun, especially if you're overdone like you're doing with the educational videos. Again, that's Tom Redington on YouTube. I think it's at Tom Reddington, right? Tom
Yep,
Reddington.
yep. Make it
Are
pretty
you
much all the
still
socials. Yep.
are you still doing Lake Fork guided trips?
No, I stopped. That just got to the point where I was touring so much that that the guide, it was just hard to do when he came back. So that's been probably 5, 6 years now. I haven't guided.
Is that something you might reinvest some time into, or no?
When I started, I worked in the corporate world for a few years, and I was so happy to be out of there and just fishing every day. And I was working I was new on the guide scene there, and here I'm
Mm.
in a booth with Mark Pack and Kelly Jordan, who's like winning everything at the time, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of starstruck. And Pack came over, and he's like, "So you hate guiding yet?" I said, "No, man, I love it." He's like, "You will." I said, "No, no, man, I love it. I used to sit in meetings and stuff, and I just get to take people fishing. And, no, I love it." He's like, "Oh, you'll hate it." And Kelly's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, you'll hate it." And no, and this is like a 5-minute conversation. by God, after about 5 years, like, yeah, it started to get old, and it's just
Yeah.
some of my best friends I've made, and like guys that helped me out and end up being, the sponsor contacts, or just like great fishing buddies, and people that, I mean, are my dearest friends now,
Hmm.
are through it. But it's one of those things that it's like everything in life. The 1% of the customers are so bad that it just negates the other 99%. And a few of those you would
Yeah.
just dread it. And the ones where it was that, and the trips, you just, like, people were excited to go, and you would still, and sometimes it worked out, but you just knew it was going to suck.
Yeah.
The conditions are wrong. It has been sucking. It's just in between seasons, and like, oh, just dealing with there. Everybody's coming to Lake Fork. They're excited to catch this big one, and you just like, you're dreading going. And when that was just that just made it tough with the knowing that people were so excited to go, and you just kind of knew from the get go it was gonna be a tough day. That made it
Yeah.
hard.
I mean, you can pick and choose, I guess, now, couldn't you? Every once in a
Yeah,
while, just to fill a niche, really, or maybe just friends and family out for trips or something. But yeah, I can 100% see that. If you're going out every day, you're going to get some train wrecks.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't know if I wouldn't do that, but
and
that's me.
a lot of people, it's a way you can be on the water and fish. But the thing was, like, to become a better fisherman, it's you kind of, after years of fishing fork, it'd be like you had your milk running spots, and you'd fish the same stuff, and it's like, I just didn't feel like I was growing as an angler either, getting
Mm,
better. Where it was kind of like if you were just throwing a Senko or something on the flats, and just fish and spotted fish, and just doing that. It's kind of, you were just, it was kind of that grinder tournament, just like day
yeah,
after day. Versus when you go into different lakes, you're mixing it up, you're trying different things. Uh, it felt like you were actually growing as an angler. So that kind of, it gets kind of stagnant that way if you're trying to
yeah,
really, the guys that are trying to aspire and be top level pros.
I gotcha. Yeah, I can see that. Um, there was one question I forgot to ask about the boat, about your setup.
Hmm.
Do you have a hot foot?
I do.
You
Yep.
do?
And I
Do
ended
you
up going with
like?
the, oh yeah.
Good. Yeah, you like it?
Yeah, I just especially for rough water, and then I have I've got a hydraulic jack plate too, so I've got
Right.
the blinker switches, and like, I want two hands on the wheel, my foot,
Yeah.
both my feet pressed in. I mean, some of those, I've just been on enough rough rides over the years that like, man, I want to be hanging on hanging on tight with both hands. On my car, I never have two hands on the steering wheel, like, ever.
Mhm.
Like a boat, like, if it's very rough, I want two hands there. So I like the hot foot.
And I've never had one, and obviously I'm doing research now on it because they come with it.
Hmm.
But with a hot foot, you have to have it so you still use the throttle, but it's just for on and basically in gear, not in gear, right?
Exactly.
So you
Yep.
have to
Just
push it
swifter.
into gear
Hmm.
before you're able to use the throttle. So what I'm so used to is if I'm if I'm spot jumping, if I'm running out of time in a tournament and I got to get to a bunch of different spots for one fish catch, I'm jumping back there and basically on one knee, and I'm using the throttle to go. I don't have a hot foot, so I'm using the throttle on one knee. I just feel like it would be a lot to just always have to get into the seat, put it into gear, and then use the hot foot again.
Yeah.
Like it seems like it would be a lot. It'd be good for some applications and not good for others. But do you ever have an issue with that type of stuff?
No, the only thing you have to watch out on is if you get guys that leave water bottles around the bottom of the boat, and you get they get blown around. They will, like, a couple times, and I happened to buddies too. It'll jam up behind there, it'll blow in there, and you have to, like, stomp on the thing to, like, the throttle will stick. So you don't want bottles flying around. But I mean, that's happened once in a blue moon. But
Yeah.
outside of that, like, all of our rules were always, you had to have, be totally seated at the seat, sitting down. And to me, it's like, most all, any car or truck you drive has a foot throttle, so it's just kind of like,
Yeah.
being in your car there. So you slide in, and it's typically it's quicker, or it's those stinking auto inflate life jackets will be wrapped around once, and you're trying to get your arm through and with your winter coat on. Like
Yep.
that's the sticking point. Or you
Yep.
get your fishing partner to like sit down and like the two of you are like, come on, we're going to the next spot, and he's like, here, let me just reel this one in. It's like, sit down, let's go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A
But
team fishing is.
can you keep the throttle in gear when you stop, or do you like when you stop you have to put it back in neutral, right? Like just
No, no.
because you're
So you
not
can
pushing on the throttle on the hot foot doesn't mean that you're going to be in neutral, is it?
right if you have it engaged. I mean, it's just at idle. So it's if you're going through a marina no wake zone and you just put it in gear, you'll still be going forward at idle speed. You can hop up in your front deck, and if you forgot to strap down a rod or you just want to grab out, a spool line or something out of a storage box. So yeah, you can keep it. You can keep it going.
Okay, but when you shut the boat off, you have to have it in neutral. So you're still moving the throttle regardless.
Yeah, I mean it's solely a shifter at that point. I mean, you push it
Yeah.
as soon
Okay.
as it engages the gear, how far forward or back, it doesn't matter. And then it has to be in neutral, obviously, to start it again.
Okay. Okay. See how uneducated I am with like the I guess you could say it's the upgrades, like the upper echelon upgrades, right? I mean, some guys now I hear they're putting the heated seats in their boats.
I
Have you
have
heard
heard
about
of
this?
that. Yeah, I, I would
Now,
I would like to have one this week. I know that.
right? And I don't know what that does with battery power. I mean, you put in your own like dedicated battery for that because that's got to pull some amperage big time, unless you're
You,
doing maybe like a charge or something that's it's always keeping it charged. But I mean, it seems like something that would be awesome to have. But then, like like you said earlier, it's stuff that you once you have, you probably wouldn't not ever have again, right? You'd always put it in the boat.
yeah,
Um, I mean, what else is there? I mean, you love the two graphs up front. You're not going with three, right? I think I saw two on that boat.
yeah. I did the three last year, tournament,
Yeah.
and I mean, it's really eye opening if you have the perspective mode and the live scope at the same time, like being able to understand laydowns and brush piles, like how are rock formations and foundations and stuff. I mean, it's like so eye opening to know exactly where to put even if you're not throwing at dots. I mean, if you're throwing at trying to bring it down the right on the edge of the rock vein or something like that, you can just line it up perfectly. But I mean, that's a luxury of high end tournament fishing, not something you
Yeah.
need on the everyday.
True. You're running Garmin everything, or do you have
Mm-hmm.
one graph that's not a Garmin?
No, all Garmin.
You're going off because they connect all together.
Mm-hmm.
That's smart. I mean, yeah, you've got Lowrance Ghost connects with all the Lowrance units. You've got the Humminbird stuff that goes with the Minn Kotas, and you've got the Garmin stuff that goes with the Garmin. And it's wild that people still mix and match too. Because some guys will run Humminbirds, but then they'll do a Garmin for the live scope because like the Garmin live scope a lot better, and that's kind of its own unit, right? It's not doesn't need to connect to the trolling motor. It's just by way of wires or a mechanical device. Um,
Yeah,
but it's a weird it's a world I have not yet dove into because I just don't need to, and it's a lot of money to get into. To be honest with
yeah, and they all like it's everything. They're all a trade off. One and it something like mapping. Like, well, for one lake, this map's better. Another lake, this one's better, and one's maybe overall a little better at mapping, and one's got a little better 2D sonar. One's a little better on down, and one's better on live scope and all that stuff. They're all pretty good these days. The main thing, for me with all Garmin though, I mean, these are like complex computers,
you. Yeah,
and they all have their little nuances and quirks if something goes wrong, and then how to like. It's kind of like if you switch from an Android to an iPhone next week or vice versa, like you understand like what all the commands are, like the things you're looking for, like make my screen brighter or darker. Like
mm-hmm.
I'm an iPhone, I know how to do it on mine or turn on my flashlight. Like I go home and try to get, help my dad, like just send a text message. I can't even figure out how to send a text message on his just because it's like it's it's totally different. And once
Yeah,
he gets me to it, like, okay, here's how you attach a picture, Dad. But like until I get to that spot, I just can't find it. And that's the same thing if you have 3 Garmin's and then one of a different brand. It's like I just want to increase the gain, but I don't know where the gain button is. And
Yeah,
it's just you're trying to make stuff less complicated versus more. So
true.
having the all one brand seems like it's makes that simplified.
Now, how are the Garmin maps? So they have their own chip or internal mapping system. So because I'm a Lowrance guy, so I'm Navionics.
Hmm.
I've heard Humminbird does take Navionics chips, but they're technically Lake Master, right? So if I go to Humminbird, I have to get the Lake Master chips. What's the Garmin use?
So Garmin has two. One, they own Navionics, so they have like on their chips. That's all the Navionics stuff now.
Oh,
Plus
okay.
they,
I didn't know that.
plus they did their own high def surveys of a lot of the major lakes. So like, uh, I mean, it's a pretty exhaustive list now. So they have really good maps there, and then they have that fishing hotspots maps information on a lot of them as well. So
Okay.
they they have they have good mapping. That's something where they needed to improve, when they really got serious about the bass game. But they've dove in, especially now that they've acquired Navionics. I mean, it's really good.
When was that? When did they acquire?
Oh, that's probably 5 years ago now, maybe
It
more
was, huh?
even. Yeah.
So I'd be able to use my Navionics chip in a Garmin?
Well, they have their Garmin chips, but actually, like the base map on the ones that I use now, like this past year, I haven't even put my new my lake chips in them. The base map's so good now that like I don't even use the lake one.
You mean the one that's loaded into the unit itself?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
no external chips or anything?
Right.
That's pretty good. I did not know that. Again, like I've lived in a Lowrance world forever. You know what I mean? And simplicity for me rules. Like I don't really do a lot of, you know, I guess side scan or down scan. I really don't do a lot. I
Yeah.
started to get more into the side scan lately. Um, but Navionics has done my baby for that. It's been sharing wirelessly from the front to the console, and I'm starting to kind of branch out and look at other, I guess, other companies, other screens, other mapping. The Lake Master stuff, I rented a G3 while I was down at Gunnersville a couple of years ago, and the Lake Master map was phenomenal. I just don't know. I mean, again, it's down south, right? That those maps are probably a lot more um, popular than the ones up here, right? So especially with the smaller lakes that I fit. Um,
Yeah.
but just understanding all this new technology for these new screens is probably beneficial to anybody. But it's good
Well
to
then,
know that Garmin will do that.
yeah, and then your phone is so powerful now. It's like, Garmin has it. You get the Navionics app, that all the Lake Master maps, you can get those on your phone now. So it's like a phone, or some guys will run an iPad even if they want a
Oh
bigger
yeah,
version of it. But that's like if there'll be certain lakes we go to, and it's like the backs of certain creeks. Like one mapping app will have just, I mean, they'll show the creek channels and all these drop offs, versus another one won't have it very good. It wasn't surveyed as recently or something, and uh, I mean that's a great hack. So you can get,
yeah,
and that varies so much just lake to lake, and but all those get better and better, like from a few years ago.
yeah. And I don't stay up to date with downloading the new like the updates and stuff like that. I'm horrible at that stuff. I don't know. I just never get into that stuff, man.
Well, it's good and
Uh,
bad, because it's guys have run into issues with that where when those updates, it's like anything else, for phones and computer and stuff. Every once in a while there'll be a bad update, and one of the veteran pros one gave me the advice like, I don't know, 7 8 years ago, and he's like, man, I'll tell you what I do. He's like, at the beginning of the season, like I update it, and if everything's working right, he's like, unless something like groundbreaking, like major happens, like I
yeah,
don't update it again, because I'm not going to risk like bricking my unit or have it all of a sudden, can't even work.
right.
And all the manufacturers have run through those little snafus where all of a sudden, they do an update, and I don't care if it's Garmin, Lowrance, you name it, or it's Android and iPhones and Windows and stuff. And one of those bad software updates come out, it's a bad deal. So
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Uh,
if that's the week of your big tournament or the week you're going on vacation, I mean it's it's a bad time to update it. So if you're gonna
yeah,
do it, I would say in the wintertime is a great time when you're not fishing much or something. Update it and
agree,
see how it works, and
agree.
then the web's the other thing. You just search for it, and anymore between Facebook groups or forums and stuff. I mean, if something's a lemon or there's problems, people are going to be squawking about it, and
Oh
you'll
yeah.
hear about it.
Oh God, yeah. You actually hear more about those than you do the good things.
Oh yeah,
It's really hard to find like the good about something these days, right? Everybody just likes to
yeah.
complain about the bad shit, and they don't give any good press. It's
Well, it
wild.
gets what gets clicks. So you got to have something dramatic or
That bugs the hell out of me.
yeah,
Every time I see a new Karen video, I'm like, all right, I got to change this. I know what's going to happen. I'm not watching it. I'm not giving you the view, you know, because they're doing
yeah.
it. It's a clickbait. They're doing it to click for click. But that's the stuff that gets views today. It's brutal. I mean, the controversy around all the trails over the last year, especially the elites, with some of the podcasts going on, it was a soap opera.
Oh, it's crazy.
And I got invested in it too because I'm like, oh, this is wild. I want to see what happens. Because I had a friend of mine up here who made the elites last year. It was his first year down there. He was a rookie, and I'm trying to talk to him, be like, dude, what are you doing? Like, how is everything going on down there? Because it is a train wreck from a social point of view.
Yeah,
And part of me was like, it's fun to watch to see what's happening, but the other part of me is like, bass fishing is going downhill right now. Like we're going backwards when we should be going forward.
yeah,
It's incredible, and good things have happened since. Some people may say that some bad things have happened since, but we're starting to funnel towards the good again. I think. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's wild. It's the wild wild west last year. It was nuts.
yeah,
So after the season with all these different changes, now they have the board. I guess I don't know what they're called now, but they changed the payout structure. The forward facing sonar stuff. I don't, didn't really change, but the screen size changed. I'm just talking about Bassmaster right now.
yep,
So all that stuff, everybody's aligned with now that they're not on the water. But I'm curious to see what happens now, especially information rule 2. Some people weren't happy with it. Um, I'm curious to see what happens during the season because that's when all the drama unfolds because people are getting into it and actually have to, adhere to the rules, right? And that's when you start to see the controversy come out and people start bad mouthing on live or saying something on live, and it's just crazy. I don't know. I've spent many podcasts in the past talking about all the drama, and it's absolutely wild. Have you ever seen it like that?
no, it's when when right before the split happened. I mean, a lot of guys were pretty upset, and I was a marshal and co-angler, some going way back to like when ESPN bought Bass, and like guys have always been on the inside. It's just upset, and there's always going to be people, you know, having issues and stuff. But it's just between the internet and some negative social media sites and some of the podcasts that are springing up that are like super like about controversy and stuff. I don't know. It just seems like there is more of a there's more of a backlash now than there ever has been. I think from the fans, and that's part of the reason why this year with all the brouhaha and stuff going on and people worried about fighting so tooth and nail over whether live scope should be in fishing or not. And I feel like it was a great year for me to divest from that and just move into like, man, I love to catch fish, and there's I love catching them on a frog and a spinner bait and kind of all different ways of doing it. And I won't want to do one method every single day, and I can kind of just go back and fish for the reason I like going fishing is because I
Yeah.
like catching fish. So I'm worried about catching fish now instead of all these other drama topics. And like it's gonna be freezing cold tomorrow. I'm heading back out there. I got them going
Nice.
pretty good, and I'm all excited to try a couple more baits and see if I can catch an even bigger one. And it's like I'm concentrating on the stuff that matters, the fun of the sport and the thrill of the catch instead of all the BS that's kind of going with it these days.
Yeah. Are you getting into bait design at all? Have you thought about doing it at all?
No, I've worked with Berkeley for a long time on their pro staff, and they get pretty active, ask for feedback and some of that stuff being brought on board when they're going through prototype stages or looking at that. So I do like that side, but it's like it's I mean you can with the amount of time it takes the filming and the editing and all that stuff. It's like I man, it's like it's all you can do just to like the fishing part's the easy. When you try to all the business side on the backside and putting together videos and social media posts and all that, it's amazing how much time putting together a little 10-second snippet for Instagram or something like that takes. And
Right. I was almost like excited that TikTok went away for like 3 hours.
I
And
was
I
hoping
was
to see
like,
that.
oh, one less platform to freaking post on. I'm pumped about it. And all of a sudden it comes right back. It's like, shoot, you got to do it again. You
Yeah,
got to post on 4 different sites, the same damn thing, all to push to one. You use TikTok, you use Instagram, and both of those platforms to kind of promote your YouTube channel, right?
yeah,
Because that's what I assume that's what you want to monetize. So
yep,
you're trying to get the subscribers to be able to monetize in a way that keeps you going. Makes you a few bucks, increases your brand. But then some. I don't know if you're getting into the Instagram Reels where you can get some money on the Reels, but maybe that's true. But TikTok, I ain't paying anything. Instagram's not really paying much, right? But you got to use them too. And then Facebook, you can use to promote all of them. I don't know. That's exhausting too. It's
no,
like
I know.
who has time for all this shit?
It takes forever to post them on all there. It'd be nice if you could just post something and it just broadcast out to all, but they're all kind of territorial that if you copy it or if you share it from another one, they're gonna it's not native to there, so it's gonna be suppressed, and
You can do
it's a lot.
Instagram to Facebook. That's an easy one
Right.
because it goes to stories. But yeah, when you start with TikTok, I mean, when you post one, it downloads the video anyway, so you can post that
Right.
video anywhere else. But it's still just a pain in the ass, especially if you're doing it like TikTok allows 10-minute videos. Yeah,
Yeah.
don't bother with a 10-minute video because that's going to take forever to upload to any other platform. But
Right.
it's it's just stupid. I mean, what's the next thing? Because TikTok, who knows if it's going away? I mean, from what I've heard and read, it's not you're not going to be able to download it anymore. You're not going to be able to update it. So eventually, it'll stop working. The people that own it don't want to sell because they're protecting the algorithm. They don't want to sell the algorithm.
Right.
So they're gonna just let it die. And a lot of people depend on TikTok for content creation and money. It's a tough pill to swallow. But again, there's going to be something that always follows. I mean, that Vine was TikTok. Remember Vine? Remember the Vine
Oh yeah.
days,
Yeah.
right? That went away, and then TikTok was essentially the same damn thing
Yeah.
with a different algorithm, and that took off even bigger than Vine. So all the people that I was following that were famous on Vine ended up being famous on TikTok because they did the same damn thing.
Yeah.
So it's yeah. And then you basically beg people to be subscribers on your YouTube and follow me on Instagram, please follow
Yeah.
us. It's just crazy. It's a lot of time. Um, and I got a full time job too, so I got to contend with that. I'm coaching a bunch too, so it's a lot. But I wish I could just go out on a day like you and just fish how I want to fish. I'd love to. And I play hooky a lot. I hope my company's not watching, but I do play hooky a lot just to go fishing because when I know the bite's good, I'm like, you know what, I got to take the afternoon. I got to go. I got to
Yeah.
get out there. You know, but that's reality. And it makes those days a lot more easier. It makes them easier to enjoy because it's something that I don't do every day, and it's almost like a nice treat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what fishing is. It fills that void. It's fun to figure it out, like you mentioned, like all the variables. I love that when you put it together, when you do something different that you've never done before, and you actually catch a fish. It's self justification, and it gets you outside. It's funny that fishing is supposed to be an outdoor sport, no screens. Now look at us.
Yeah.
We're right back to screens.
Oh, no.
You're supposed to get out, away from TV, out into the outdoors, get away from those screen times. And now we're right back to 8 hours of screen time on the water. Oh man. It's fun. But well, listen, we've done. Go ahead. What?
I said all the catch fish we're just going to throw back. So yeah,
I know. Well, that's why I'm doing a little something different with trying to catch some different species. I mean, so I'm going out and trying to catch a trout I've never even tried to get before. I'm going out and I'm going to try to catch some sturgeon, some different catfish. I bet you I'm going to find something that I might like to catch almost as much as bass. You know what I mean? And that'll spawn into saltwater stuff where I'm trying to catch huge fish because I love huge fish. And that's what everybody else is doing too. They're going to catch huge fish on the ocean. But it's wild where fishing goes. It's like I've said it before. Fishing is like the gateway drug. Bass fishing is the gateway drug to all other fishing because you just want to keep expanding and expanding more and more.
Yeah.
It's wild. But listen, we've gone 2 hours and 15 minutes. I really appreciate you coming on, Tom. I really do. It was a pleasure talking to you. I love the fact that you're back in an aluminum boat. You've talked me into the H20. I'm not gonna lie to you. So I'm gonna try to get myself into an H20 this year. I actually joked with my buddy from Alabama. I was like, I should probably have my wife down there on this, so Tom can talk her into getting the boat because she's the one that makes the decision.
That's a tough sale. Huh?
You know what I mean? It's like, listen, if Tom says it's okay, we can do it, okay? But anyways, again, thank you so much, everybody. Go check out Tom Redington on YouTube, Instagram, all the socials. He's got some really great educational content coming out. Live scoping right now, cold water fishing, which is always some of the best fishing in my eyes. I mean, I'm from the Northeast. I love cold fishing. When the water temp is within that 38 to 45 degree temperature, it's fire. I love it. And not a lot of people are out there either, which is even better.
Yeah, that's the best part.
Yes. But thank you very much again. We're going to pause a minute because I have to hit stop so it refreshes, and then we'll let you go in a minute. But again, Tom Redington, thank you very much. And that's a wrap on episode 2. Thank you, my man.
All right, thank you.